So, Nitro 129, also March 2nd, 1998. I think I neglected to mention that at the opening of the show. March 2nd, 1998, everybody.
19 years ago this week, everybody. It's the easiest way to find it.
The NWO shows up in a limo, and we watch them walk backstage for a while. Chris Benoit versus Scotty Riggs in the opener. Short match. They brawl back and forth. Benoit hit the Rolling Germans in the crossface and won. And the announcers were sure to point out the flock did not attack Benoit after the match because they knew they would get their ass kicked.
My favorite part of this match is they're outside, and Benoit's beating up on Lodi. Mm-hmm. And Riggs flies through the air and hits Benoit. And I guess he didn't hit him hard enough. Benoit just kept beating on Lodi. So Riggs had to try it again. Or maybe Benoit thought, I have not given this man a sufficient beating, and thus I'm not going to sell for you until I've beaten him severely.
This is not like a few weeks ago when Hall hit somebody with a baseball bat and was trying to pull it and protect them, and so they didn't know they were hit.
Right.
Riggs waffled Benoit, and Benoit just didn't care. He just kept on beating Lodi. I like Lodi's sign that just said for no reason, Bobby Heenan is great. Because he is.
Nick Patrick was the official for this. Nick Patrick has cut his mullet and clean shaven. I guess he's not a heel anymore.
Ready for his 43rd turn in this program. The announcers said Randy Savage had been named Harvard Lampoon's Real Man of the Year.
I remember this vividly from the time.
And they added, and this is a quote, and you know something like that has to stick in the craw of Hollywood Hulk Hogan.
Yeah, he got a comedy award.
I love wrestling sometimes.
Dude, they played it up like this was a big, important, legitimate award.
Yes.
It's fucking great.
So they showed Randy visiting the Harvard campus to accept his trophy in person.
I mean, really, if there were a Real Man of the Year award, I mean, Randy Savage, a guy like that should get it.
Sure. But they edited this whole presentation in NWO style with rapid cuts and music and all that. Hogan and Bischoff came out for a promo. I'm done with these two. I don't need to see them ever cut a promo again. I know I'm going to see them cut a promo every week for like 3 more years.
Vinny, there's so much bad stuff we've been watching that this is not near the top of the list. They just come out and talk.
Yes!
So you'd rather watch the Headbangers than these two guys come out every week?
No, the Headbangers
JEFFJARRETT?
Those are both worse than Hulk Hogan talking.
The fucking DOA?
That is...
I could go on and on.
If Bischoff would turn his hat right side,
that would be
so annoying.
You in this hat.
What do you mean me in this hat?
It's
Vinny had the same problem.
This is the second week in a row you've mentioned his hat.
That's untrue. Vinny mentioned it last week. It's annoying.
No, it was you. It was definitely you that brought it up.
It was me.
You are wrong once again.
Anyway, brother...
I'm going to go get the clip here in a minute.
Brother, dude, Jack Pythons for life. What you going to do? Buried Savage for winning Real Man of the Year and failing to keep his marriage together. Well then. He vowed to beat Savage in the cage match and uncensored. Mean Gene and the Nitro Girls were at St. Joseph's University for a Nitro party. There were loud screaming geeks everywhere.
Hey, the spring break Nitro's coming. Thank God.
Your favorite.
Yeah. If they would have just stayed there, they'd still be in business today.
They went out of business there.
Well, I mean, it'd been booked in advance.
That's true. Yeah.
Bunch of drunken frat boys and the Nitro Girls. Talk about bringing lambs to the slaughter.
I'm pretty sure these women could have defended themselves against these guys.
That's true.
There was one point, because there's like 8 of these shoots in the show, and there's one where they were like dancing, had fans dancing with them.
Yes.
And one guy had his arm around a woman's waist. And like, just watch that hand, man. Leave it right where it is, and you'll be okay.
Easy.
Yes.
Don't go north. Don't go south.
No. Either. Chavo Guerrero Jr. versus Juventud Guerrera. It was Juvi's first appearance on Nitro without his mask. I don't know if there was a dark match or something, but Chavo was coated in glitter. Do you guys notice this?
Nope.
Glitter all over his back.
Nitro Girls weren't there.
I was just gazing into Juvi's eyes. I think I said gaving, actually.
You did say that.
Listen, the funniest thing on this whole show, we'll get to it later, was when Conan called out Juvi.
Oh, jeez.
He wanted a match next week. And he said he was going to give him a match and an audition with the Nitro Girls.
Yes.
Fucking howled. Guy's way better off without his mask on. He was a handsome youngster.
He is very man-pretty.
Still fucking terrible. I shouldn't say that.
This was one of his better days.
The match was all right. It was a little clunky. Yeah. There were a lot of moves.
He pulled off most of them.
He did pull off a lot of them.
He won with a Michinoku driver in the 450 splash. And he cut a promo holding his mask saying, "This is not the end, it's the beginning." This was good. Psychosis from Prince Iaukea was not good.
I remember, if we go back to it was, I guess, 2 years ago when we were reviewing 1995, 1996, and Prince Iaukea is out there, and The Rock's on the other channel, and I remember remarking at the time, you know what, this Iaukea right now, at this point in his career, is better than The Rock. How that's fucking changed. One guy went straight up, other guy went straight down. Iaukea was so horrible here. They did a spot where Psychosis whipped him in and drop kicked him, but Iaukea just ran right through it. Mm-hmm. Because I don't know why. How do you run? He got hit with a drop kick and just ran right through it. And then he takes like 2 steps. He realizes, I just ran right through that drop kick. Mm-hmm. And he just puts on the brakes and turns around and then
he looks
grabs the guy.
Beyond the sloppiness and the clunkiness and the botched moves, he looked so totally disinterested from start to finish. He wasn't in pain when he was on defense. He wasn't happy when he was on offense. He looked bored to be alive.
Well, dude, I was bored watching this match. It went on forever. Psychosis finally hits a guillotine leg drop and then pulls him up at 2. I turned on Psychosis. I never need to see this guy again as long as I live. I was infuriated. Everybody chants boring. And then Iaukea pinned him.
With a fucked up top rope victory roll.
Sad, I wrote here with an exclamation point.
Now remember, when he came back from Japan, he had a month of pretty good
Well, can we send him back to Japan then?
Exactly.
Yes. So nobody cared about this win, including Iaukea, who was just going to walk away. The ref says, let me raise your hand. Iaukea says, okay. The ref raises his hand, and Iaukea goes to the back. Completely bored with his own win. Raven versus Disco Inferno.
Hey, this was a good match.
Well, they were in Philadelphia.
All of the things I hated on this show, they actually had a good match.
They were in Philadelphia, and they loved them some Raven, and later on they loved them some Public Enemy, but we will get to that momentarily.
Dude, I'll talk about it right now. They were in Philadelphia, but guess what? Public Enemy did not have a good match.
No.
So the city didn't have anything to do with this match being good. They worked well together.
It was good. Is there anything weirder than babyface Disco Inferno?
Dude, he's been a babyface forever.
It's just weird. So, yes, had a fun match. A lot of brawling, a lot of chair shots. And finally, a drop to hold onto a chair and a DDT, and Raven wins. They had clips of Public Enemy signing autographs. Gene interviewed a police officer about spring break. Then interviewed a kid who had won a spring break trip to Florida. Who wants to talk about Public Enemy first?
Dude, I will. Was it you that said that this was the worst Public Enemy match you ever saw?
Yes, sir.
What do you make of that, Vinny? I disagree vehemently.
I have seen worse Public Enemy matches.
I said it might have been the worst. This was not good. And the tables weren't even cooperating in this match.
Well, there was that. I actually thought this match was okay.
Oh, Brian.
I did. It had Barbarian in it. At the Public Enemy.
And that's where it stops.
It was a mess. I'll give you that.
Barbarian traded in his Ming for a Hugh Morris.
This is a poor decision.
That was not an... That's like going to the dealership and... Never mind.
Listen, here's what I can say about this, okay?
Ming works
that Headbangers match that we saw earlier tonight was a mess.
Yeah.
But it also sucked.
Yes.
This was a mess, but it was exciting.
Fair.
Now, I will say that they pre-cut a table that they were going to use for the finish.
Yes.
Dude.
I don't know why.
Public Enemy was unaware about what it... So, a table breaks your fall.
Yeah.
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
Why would you pre-cut it?
I don't know.
You morons?
Well, maybe Hugh Morris isn't big enough to... Oh, never mind.
Yeah. They put Hugh Morris on this pre-cut table, and it didn't... It couldn't have gone any better, actually. It didn't snap. It just slowly melted.
Yeah, it slowly folded. Everybody boos because they recognize a pre-cut table.
Yeah.
Which actually they should have been cheering because that makes it a harder bump.
Well, it was actually
It always makes me laugh, people who have not... It seems so obvious to me, and maybe it's just because I did wrestle a little bit. But yes, going through tables doesn't hurt that bad, and pre-cutting them makes it worse. Why did they pre-cut it?
This was the second table used in the match as well. The first one wasn't pre-cut.
Let's talk about that first table. So it's Public Enemy's table, they said.
Well, yeah, because they...
So these idiots,
They labeled them.
they spent the time to get some fucking tape and tape TPE on the table.
Right.
Not PE.
Yeah.
They're not Public Enemy.
That's the rap group.
Yeah.
They're the Public Enemy.
Yes.
Now, saying that, their jerseys just have PE.
Sure.
There's no T. I was like, did you have to make a T? That's what bothered me the most about this
Would
goddamn
Chuck
match.
D have sued you?
Yeah, what the hell?
So, yeah, the first table spot was they attempted to put Jimmy Hart through a table, and
Oh, my God. They ripped Jimmy Hart's shirt off.
Yeah.
He's running around with no shirt on.
he had the best tan in the match.
Well, he had the best tan. He did not have the best body.
He
Although
had the second best body.
I didn't see Johnny Grunge with his shirt off.
So, I thought he looked much better than I would have expected. For guys close to 60 when this happened.
He wasn't close to 60 when this happened.
I had low expectations for Jimmy Hart's physique. He exceeded them. Anyway, so this fucking table spot with Hart on the table, it takes him like an hour to break it up.
Like how Jimmy Hart's always been almost 60.
He has, actually.
Perpetually.
Yes. Anyway, the Public Enemy go through it, and then they're just on their feet a minute later. They get the pre-cut table spot, hit a leg drop on Morris, and they pin him, and sucked it was pointless.
He was 54.
That's kind of close to 60.
It's kind of close to 60.
Closer to 60 than a 40.
But he's 73 now, which is also kind of close to 60.
No, it's close to 80. You always round up
Oh.
when you're trying to make a guy sound old.
So you're 50?
Yeah.
How that works?
Yes.
Okay, we got it.
Actually, I am 60. Randy Savage came out for a promo. He did have the NWO logo on this week. Promised to do business with Sting tonight to face Hogan and Scott Hall, but they were going to do business his way. So Sting comes out, tells Savage to wait a minute, calls out Hall, warns him he's dead. He addresses Savage. It says, "For 16 months, I watched you stand by Hogan's side. Tonight, we're going to fight Hogan, and we're going to do business, but I can only do business my way." And he left.
Never found out what that meant.
No. Sick Boy versus Goldberg.
All right, Vinny. Tell me right now. You tell me with a straight face that Sick Boy is better than Pietrov. Because he's not.
Who is not in this match.
He's worse. Vladimir Pietrov is better than Sick Boy. And Vladimir Pietrov is at least working with good guys every night, so within about 2 months, he's going to be way better than Sick Boy, who I don't think ever wrestled, except occasionally on television, having hideous matches.
This was very bad.
Oh my God, it was so bad.
He goes for one springboard move.
Oh, yeah.
And Goldberg just kind of catches him in a chokeslam and throws him down to the mat. So that was cool. Then like 10 seconds later, he tries another springboard, and he jumps up, and his feet hit the middle rope, and the next thing you know, he's flying out of control halfway to Goldberg and lands on his ass in the middle of the ring. I will concede, Brian, Vladimir Pietrov never did anything that bad. That I will admit.
At least Vladimir could jump off the top rope successfully
And land.
grab a man's neck.
He could obey gravity.
He went to do the springboard, and it's like his right foot slipped out from under him, and he just crashed on the mat.
Then Goldberg had to figure out what to do.
Yes.
And his response was, "I'm going to get you." That's what he did.
That's what you're supposed to do.
It caught Goldberg so off guard, he almost fell down. In sympathy. He hit a spear from the side. So
He
it
hit
was
a pounce.
He hit a pounce, yeah. And a jackhammer for the win. And a music video for Stuck Mojo.
Dude, this was the greatest thing
I was gonna say
in
the
all
same
of the
thing.
night. This saved the Attitude Era. They've earned another 6 months before I give up because of this.
So here's the story, okay?
Now let me tell the
All
story.
right, have at it.
There's a band called Stuck Mojo.
Not anymore.
Okay, there was.
They're Fozzy now.
So they've got a video that was gonna be on MTV, but Nitro scooped them. So it's fucking hilariously terrible. It's a bunch of skinny geeks screaming, and then the Flock shows up. They're, I guess, performing in a ring. The Flock shows up, including Ron Reese, who looks like a giant hornswoggle.
Oh, yeah.
So this is the story of the music video. Let's start with that. The story the music video is telling
Behind the music.
is these skinny geeks are in there doing a concert in a goddamn wrestling ring at the 321 Battle Arena here in Seattle. There's like 30 people there in this tiny building.
Don't knock it.
The
till you try
fucking
it.
Flock shows up and they start beating up the band.
Yeah. As one does.
DDP is there And he's like, God damn, I got to do something about this.
First, he's got to finish his cigar.
Yeah,
he's looking on in disapproval, but this cigar is not going to smoke itself.
He smokes a whole cigar first. He goes down there. He beats up all of the bad guys single-handedly. He ends up giving Hammer the big diamond cutter, and everybody's happy. So I'm watching this, and I'm just going, I got to watch this again. So watch it again. I'm like, this is just the craziest fucking thing. It's the same song. Like, WWE didn't have to put a new song in, which would have been hilarious. They had a different song these guys are lip syncing to. They go back, and DDP is with Mike Tenay. Here in March of 1998, they come on national television, and they explain that it was a shoot.
Yes.
That is the best
Stuck
part.
Mojo was filming a video
Right.
in one take, apparently.
Yes.
And a bunch of fuckers ran in, the flock, and they started beating up the band members.
Yes.
But thank God that DDP was there.
Yes.
And in the course of the length of the song,
Right.
which, by the way, how they kept singing when they were getting beaten up in this one take, I'm not sure how that happened.
Well, it's
but
not
they
very good
did.
music, so
He saved the day.
Yes. When they introduced this video, Shivani let us know that Paige had been invited to be there for this video shoot because he did the thing at the beginning. But then Raven and the flock had tried to ruin things, and fortunately Paige had been there to save the day. This is a real thing that happened in WCW world.
By the way, kids, if you're going to attempt to smoke a cigar in the amount of time it takes for one song, you're going to be ill.
Yeah, don't do that.
Well, DDP pulled it off.
DDP is cooler than any kid
Which
listening to the
I
show.
can believe,
Yeah.
actually.
Yes.
I think he could have ate that cigar. I took one look at that guy.
So yes, this was awesome.
Unbelievably
Raven
great.
and the flock
Like hideous, but
tried
unbelievably
to
great.
ruin a music video because they couldn't stand Stuck Mojo.
Now, the best part is that there was fans all around all four sides of this ring, and they were losing their minds. And as DDP was dispatching of the flock, the crowd said, "These people need to body surf."
Yeah.
And they took these evil men and they body surfed them as
Well-
they hit the crowd.
As the flock was throwing guys out of the ring, they were also doing their own stage dives. The only part of this I remembered was Kidman doing a shooting star press into the crowd.
Yes.
Because it was awesome. It was unbelievably awesome. But then even during the fight, like, Paige backdrops Kidman over the rope and the crowd catches him.
Now,
I want to go back and watch this again. I love this.
I loved it too, and I gotta defend WCW here. So, as absolutely preposterous as this was, and it was, the thing was, they got a lot of publicity being in a Stuck Mojo music video that was going to air on MTV. And Diamond Dallas Page is feuding with The Flock. So, there's no other way to explain this without blatantly breaking kayfabe.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah, sure.
So Diamond Dallas Page is there working with the flock and doing moves on them. You can't come out and say that. It was like they were...
That would have been worse.
Either way, they were fucked.
I don't think they were fucked the way they did it.
Well,
I think it was awesome the way they did
it
it.
was awesome, but it was absolutely ridiculous.
Of
in
course it
1998.
is.
And then Hammer comes out.
So
We got the rematch from
Goddamn
last
Hammer
week.
didn't learn his lesson. Like, you idiot. We just watched you get a diamond cutter.
yeah.
These two wrestled last week, and then Diamond beat him up in a music video, and this is the rubber match.
So yeah, they wrestle a while. Hammer does a blatant low blow right in front of the ref. Page hits a wacky diamond cutter variant, and Raven attacks with a DQ. A theme that will repeat through the rest of the show. So there's a brawl going on. Benoit runs out to make the save. Page accidentally punches him, and they have a three-way brawl. More clips from the college party. We got Bret Hart coming out for a promo.
Got a Beavis and Butthead sign on TV. Can't even believe it.
He runs down the NWO. He promises to beat Kurt Hennig. The best line he says, "By the way, my dad could beat up your dad."
It was so awesome because there's one man in all of professional wrestling that could unironically say that line.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
be deadly serious about it. And it's Bret Hart.
Absolutely. Stu could beat the Axe.
And can you imagine that Bret Hart gets fucked in Montreal And WCW signs away the guy that got screwed out of the title. He's the rightful WWE World Heavyweight Champion. He never lost the belt fair and square. And his first match on Nitro is with Crush.
Bryan Adams. Yeah, that's not how I would have done it either. He did say he would beat Bryan Adams tonight.
Not to mention, they got Davey Boy.
Mm-hmm.
And he's had one horrible, awful match after another, including tonight with Scott Norton.
So Scott Norton and Davey Boy Smith. Could Ted Turner's multi-billion-dollar entertainment media conglomerate have found a worse version of Rule Britannia for Davey Boy's music? Did they have an old 1930s vinyl record playing and hold like one of those big the big phonograms with the big horn, and hold a microphone up to that?
I like to think that Lee Marshall was holding his phone up to a
phone. That's even better, yeah. So they had a 2-minute mean guy match, and they're brawling on the floor. Norton shoves down the ref. The ref calls for the DQ. That was a waste of time.
Now listen. As much as we ranted and raved about the Headbangers finish on Raw and how the director missed 5 fucking minutes of the finish, at least afterwards, they showed a replay. So we actually found out what happened, and Vinny was able to go write it down. These guys have a 2-minute match, the bell rings, the announcers have absolutely no idea what happened. They don't know if it was a countout, they don't know if it was a DQ, they have no idea what the finish is, and then they just left. There was no replay, there was no clarification.
I did not need a replay. It was all on camera.
It would have been nice if they would have at least alerted the announcers, since it's their job to tell us what happened.
Oh, that's true. Conan comes out for a promo.
He's the Hamburglar, right? He is.
I could see that. Yes.
Google it.
No, I remember the Hamburglar. It just caught me off guard.
He looks exactly like the Hamburglar.
Huh.
Minus the mask.
No, he had the sunglasses.
Okay.
Yeah, all right. The more I'm thinking about this.
Okay.
The point is, the guy from the evil, hated, vile New World Order comes out there and sucks up to the Philly crowd.
Yep.
Gets himself over.
Also from ECW back in the day.
Way back in the day. Mm-hmm. What's that thing he literally stole music, as in like the cassette tapes music were on? I seem to recall this happening. So Conan says Hoovy is a punk Mark Buster because he lost his mask.
Mm-hmm.
Leads to Conan versus Super Calo.
They didn't have a good match.
We watch a lot of matches on Nitro, and they do a lot of styles clashes because it's Nitro. They'll throw 2 guys out there. And we see a lot of luchadors who set the bar high, and they try some high-risk stuff, and sometimes they don't pull it off. We saw Sick Boy earlier fall on his ass. They bought something so badly here where they just stopped and stared at each other.
They ran into each other, and then time stood still as they both sat and looked at each other, trying to figure out what they're going to do next.
And everyone just started booing. Here was a classic WCW moment. They announced at the pay-per-view that Raven would face Chris Benoit and DDP in a 3-way match, a triple Jeopardy match, I think they said. Then they realized they had no idea what the rules would be, or how you would win, or how you'd be eliminated. They had no idea what was going on. Conan wins with the Cradle DDT and the Tequila Sunrise. He goes after Super Calo's mask until Hoovy hits the ring. And I thought, okay, Hoovy's going to attack him and Conan will run away. Or something. Hoovy hits the ring, and they stand there and chat. Hoovy and Conan have a conversation. Here was where Conan said, I will give you a match next week and an audition for the Nitro Girls. And he left, and Hoovy doesn't speak English well enough to understand what he says, so he just shouts what the English he knows, I want a match, over and over again.
You know Conan's finisher, that 187 move that he does, and then he follows it up with the stupid submission hold?
Yeah.
He shouldn't have used that submission hold. That finisher, the 187 where he cradles a guy and hits the DDT, that should be his finish. I know he doesn't have to worry about it now. But,
Well, maybe he wanted 2 moves.
But then don't use them both in the same match.
Gotta get them both over, brother.
All right.
Who cares? Got far bigger fish to fry.
They showed Bryan Adams turning on Bret Hart a few weeks ago. Ric Flair came out for a promo.
Best thing on the show.
Aside from Stuck Mojo, this was the best thing on the show.
The first thing that I thought was, it is too bad that Mean Gene is at that party at St. Joe's, because I don't get to hear Ric Flair say Mean Gene's name. Mm-hmm. And then Flair says, like, word for word what I had been thinking. It's too bad I'm not at that party with Gene and the college girls, but I've got to see this main event. So Kurt Hennig and Rick Rude come out, and they're in Philadelphia, and Flair makes a hockey joke.
God, you know that I just got to mention, that's one of those things that, like, Flair had to explain why he wasn't at a college with a bunch of college chicks.
Yeah.
I got to see this main event.
That's a lie.
Flair put everybody over.
Yes, he did.
They just tried to make an explanation for it that also put over the main event. Good for you, Rick.
So Kurt Hennig and Rick Rude come out, and Ric Flair makes a hockey joke referencing the Flyers and the Pittsburgh Penguins, mentions a man named Jaromir Jagr, who compared them to Hennig, because Hennig was the heel and Jagr played for the other team, so the Philadelphia fans would boo him. The reason I bring all of this up is just to point out that here we are, it is February 28th, 2017, Jaromir Jagr still playing in the NHL.
Wow.
That's amazing. So they jibber-jabbered a bit. Flair challenged Hennig to a one-on-one fight. Hennig accepted.
Dude, Jericho's still wrestling.
Jericho was
in
also
the
still wrestling.
WWE.
That is also true. So Hennig accepts this fight. The crowd just goes apeshit for Flair whipping Hennig's ass. It's the best.
God, it was awesome. He's there in his street clothes beating the hell out of this guy. Rude comes in. You know, another thing that I've blocked out of my mind is how physical Rick Rude was when he was just a manager. He started laying the boots in, punching the guy, stomping a mud hole in him.
So at the end of this brawl, this not sanctioned match, just a fight, Hennig hits a fisherman's suplex with a bridge. And Rude slowly removes his jacket, carefully hangs on the ropes, and then drops down and counts 3. This is almost as good as the Stuck Mojo video. So Brett finally runs out to make the save and chase them away. So, I think it was just a week ago, Scott Steiner finally turned on his brother, joined the NWO, and got a whole new look. Cut his hair, dyed his hair, got new gear. He's a new man. Here he is on Nitro for his re-debut for the new Scott Steiner. Who did they dig up to have him face? Hacksaw Jim Duggan.
All right, now before we get to this, I'm looking at my notes here. Something happened before this match. I'm just going to read what I wrote. Gene interviews a bird at the Nitro party.
Yes.
And I thought, I honest to God, a second ago when I read that back to myself, I thought, I can't remember the last time that I referred to a girl as a bird. Like, what the fuck? And then I realized, wait a second. He interviewed a bird.
There's a mascot.
There was a man dressed up as a bird.
Yeah.
Or maybe a woman, I don't know. And Gene interviewed the bird. And then started talking about ornithology or whatever the fuck the bird watching is called.
Ornithology.
Ornithology.
And then
What the hell's going on?
And then Bobby fired back with, "Did you see the beak on that chick with the feather dress?"
Lodi was right. Bobby Heenan is great.
All right, now let's get to this Scott Steiner Jim Duggan match. When I saw Jim Duggan come out, man, I was rubbing my hands together, salivating, just getting ready. Oh man, I'm gonna just tear this shit apart.
You want a moment?
And then they had a decent match. Scott Steiner and Jim Duggan.
It was better than I expected, yes.
Yeah.
But if your goal is to promote this Steiner fella...
It was very weird.
Yeah.
They went back and forth.
I would not have chosen a man bigger than him.
Well, that was the weird thing.
I would not have chosen a man older than him, although I will say Scott took one belly-to-belly suplex, and he took that double underhook that's kind of half suplex, half powerbomb.
Duggan.
Good for him, he took those moves.
Yeah.
But I'd have found the smallest guy I could have found.
Well,
I had Scott suplex him 8 times.
It's not even that. It's, first off, Steiner just turned. He's in the NWO. He should just squash somebody.
Yes.
He went back and forth with Duggan for like 5 minutes.
Yes.
Duggan is gigantic. Like, this was Scott Steiner. He was not at his peak, but he was very, very big. And Jim Duggan is not ripped, but he was
big.
Way bigger than Scott.
Yeah.
I was like, what? Yeah, he threw him around and then reclinered him.
He won with the belly-to-belly and the camel clutch.
Much better than I expected.
That's fair. Eddie Guerrero and Chris Jericho versus Booker T and Dean Malenko.
And you know what? Let me say one more thing about that match. So, the reason I thought it would be so horrible is you think of Scott Steiner, and he's like a crazy man, and he does all sorts of this wild shit, and he throws people in the air, and he suplexes them, and he tosses them off the top rope and everything like that, and I'm thinking, man, Duggan can't do any of this. But what I neglected to think about was the fact that even though his character, Big Papa Pump, was a crazy man, And in real life, he did bump into a construction worker and get in big trouble for that in his car in a road rage incident. But he's still a professional wrestler. And he looked at Jim Duggan, and he thought, how can I work around this man for 5 minutes? And he did. And it was a decent match. Sometimes you gotta idiot-proof it.
That's true.
And he did it here.
Eddie Guerrero and Chris Jericho versus Booker T and Dean Malenko. Why weren't Eddie and Chris just a full-time team for like 5 years? Now, I realize
WCW.
They're both unbelievably awesome, so anything they did would have, and in fact was unbelievably awesome anyway. But this is the best team I ever saw. And they did like 3 matches. They're so great. This is a short match, but it was awesome while it lasted. Guys were flying all over the place. And then Malenko, who was a match with Jericho at the pay-per-view, caught Jericho in the cloverleaf, and Booker T held Guerrero's foot so Guerrero couldn't break it up, and Jericho tapped out and Malenko won. This all made sense. These are short but glorious.
Let's talk about the most notable thing. They announced on Thunder, the over-the-top rope rule has been rescinded.
Probably because they watched Raw the last 2 weeks.
February, March of 1998, they finally rescinded that stupid rule.
A bunch of NWO dudes came out for a promo. Scott was with them, and he explained that today they were going to induct his brother Rick into the NWO. So Rick Steiner and Ted DiBiase come out. And Rick hits the ring, and he's all smiles. He does the too sweet thing with everyone in there. And Kevin Nash holds up a shirt. He is sure to mention these shirts are available at the merchandise stand as we speak.
I just love that Kevin Nash did the induction speech, which was very nice given he and Hall tried to kill the Steiners in an automobile accident a year earlier.
That's true.
Things happen, Brian.
I guess.
You can't live in the past.
You can't. Or this business would be really stupid.
So Nash gives the shirt to Rick, and Rick takes it, but then throws it in Nash's face and punches him, and he runs wild for a while, and he basically clears the ring, and he's going after Scott, and Scott, of course, is backing away and backing through the ropes, and everyone else swarms Rick and attacks him.
So Rick's plan was to go down to the ring with 5 men and attack them.
Kick all their asses.
Very close to Geek of the Week territory here.
They never said he was a bright man. They said he was
Actually, they did. They spent the whole thing talking about how he was smart.
I see.
And in the Scott Steiner match, the announcers were going on and on about how, yeah, Rick barks, but he calms his brother, and he's intellectual.
They did suggest Rick was the smart one.
Then this shithead comes out here like a complete idiot. Like he was Ziggler.
He's a little overconfident in his ability to beat up five champion wrestlers. So as they're destroying him, Nash is about to hit a powerbomb when Giant shows up. Actually, first he tries the powerbomb, but Rick, I sincerely believe, backdropped his way free.
I thought it was a shoot because I was like, did I just see Kevin Nash bump?
Yes.
Like, there's no way that was planned.
It's that he took a bump, but the way he goes up and the angle he's at, this is like, Rick says, fuck this. He just threw this guy through the air. Threw this giant through the air because he wanted to and he could. So he's gonna try it again when Giant shows up and everyone flees, but Nash, too slow after the backdrop, can't flee in time. Giant, who is wearing a neck brace, starts throwing headbutts. Bad plan. But it ends, he grabs Nash, he hits Nash's own powerbomb. It looks awesome, and maybe it's because it was his own move, but Nash sold this for all he could. He took this giant bump in the middle of the ring, and his full dead man's pose, he's laid out there, and a minute or two goes by when they go to commercial, he has not moved yet.
Well, after he dumped Giant on his head and neck a couple weeks back, I would have done my best to make sure that Giant's powerbomb looked great.
That's a fair point. So the powerbomb is still banned, so security says, Giant, we have to handcuff you and take you out. Giant holds out his wrists, but they're huge and thick because he's a giant. And so the handcuffs won't fit. And so security says, oh well, and Giant walks away.
Remember that if you're ever going to be incarcerated.
Officer, you have to let me go. I'm big.
Hey, it worked.
It did work.
Nash is big too. It didn't work for him.
He's not giant big. Bryan Adams versus Bret Hart.
Oh boy.
A crappy match. Adams pulled off a turnbuckle pad right in front of the ref. Ref didn't care. He ended up getting thrown into it. Brett puts on the sharpshooter when what appears before my eyes but Kurt Hennig attacking for the DQ. Bret Hart can't get a win in his first match on Nitro.
No.
Against Crush.
Dude, and we were talking earlier. Idiot-proof the match. That's what he did here.
Sure.
Bret went in there and he idiot-proofed the match.
With that said, he trusted Bryan Adams to deliver a tilt-a-whirl backbreaker, and
That's one of the only moves he can do.
He almost dropped Bret Hart.
Well, I'm sure he did. But he did do that move all the time. And it's... Everything I've ever heard when these guys talk about Bryan Adams, I think everyone liked him. So, maybe, I don't know. Anyway, yeah, Bret can't get a win. Hennig attacks for the DQ, and the three men are all brawling as we go to break. We had Sting and Randy Savage versus Hulk Hogan and Scott Hall.
We had another classic with Buffer out there. And he gets to do his big fancy intros for Hulk Hogan and Scott Hall. And then Sting and Savage come out, and he's right about to introduce them when they all hit the ring for a brawl, and he just flees and goes, "Let the match begin!"
The match begin. That's right. Somewhere in the show, by the way, I forgot to write it down. I think it was the Steiner segment with the NWO. But there's a bunch of NWO guys coming out, and Buff Bagwell had been Buff Bagwell up to this point, and he took a sign from a fan that identified him as Buff Daddy. He thought it was the greatest thing ever. And he's showing it to all his friends, and they're like, "That is a cool name. You should call yourself Buff Daddy." So here's the origin. A fan called him that, and he stuck with it. Anyway, Sting and Savage versus Hogan and Hall.
Hey, listen. The good news, they had something resembling a tag match for a while.
This was pretty good,
They
actually.
actually had a main event.
They did. Oh, as opposed to doing 1 minute and then a run-in?
Yeah.
Yeah, they did 6 minutes and then a run-in.
We got 6 minutes before our fucking run-in.
Yeah. I like that they got the heat on Savage, hot tag to Sting. Sting's entire comeback was 2 stinger splashes, Scorpion. Just get right to the point. And then the NWO attacked for the DQ.
This show.
We've hit the era where every show is going to have Hogan speaking for 5 minutes, saying nothing, and every main event is going to end with an NWO DQ run-in.
Haven't we had that for at least 6 months now?
Has it?
I'm just pointing out that nothing changes ever on this show.
Yeah. So there's a big brawl. Beefcake hits Savage with a stunner. Not very good.
And you know what? It is true. Nothing ever changes on this show. And anytime there's something that starts to get over, unplanned, it's over. Why the hell do you think that you're not going to see Eddie Guerrero and Chris Jericho as a team for any length of time?
Because they were great.
Fucking getting over. Yeah. Bret Hart and Ric Flair had a great match. Everybody went nuts for it. They got taken off television. Now they come back and Bret's feuding with Bryan Adams. Dude, the show's dying a death. This was right around the time that I wrote that one article in 98 about how, goddamn, they're doing great business, but look at this shit. I recognized it much earlier the second time around.
Yeah, Brutus Beefcake ended up saving Hogan. And as Beefcake was pulling him to the back, Hogan finally identifies this man. "Good job, disciple. You saved me, brother." And that's how they identified Brutus the Barber Beefcake. This man, who has been a friend of Hogan's for years, is now the disciple.
The disciple. Did you notice the disciple hit a stone cold stunner?
I did say that.
They officially removed it from Disco's repertoire.
Yeah.
He can no longer do the chart buster.
That's right.
Because they gotta give it to the disciple.
Tragic.
What the fuck?
Nitro, number 130, also March 9th, 1998. It opened with a clip from Thunder, with Randy Savage warning Hulk Hogan that half the guys in the NWO couldn't wait to stab him in the back. He says, "My phone's blowing up with guys who want to jump ship and join me." What's stopping them then? I think Randy Savage was lying here. So he asked Liz, "Who's the man, the real man?" She says, "It's not Hogan, it's you, Macho Man." And then Savage says, "If you want to hear that again, you can go ask your wife."
I just loved about this. You got Hogan in the ring, and you got Randy Savage in the ring. And Elizabeth is Randy Savage's wife, or ex-wife, or whatever. Mm-hmm. But she's his manager. She's his whatever, charge, second. So Savage asks his own manager, "Who's the man?"
Right.
She says, him, Hogan sells this like he's so angry.
Oh, yes.
I can't believe that Elizabeth would say that Savage is the man and not me. Hogan really is amazing.
Well,
He's such a cartoon.
that would infer that Elizabeth had both of them?
No, the point I'm making, Craig,
Okay.
is if me and Vinny and Bridget were in the room together,
Right.
and Vinny and I got into an argument,
Sure.
and Vinny said, Bridget, who's the man? And she said, Vinny, obviously.
Right.
And then I go, fuck.
Oh, I see.
I can
It's
see that happening, by the way.
Yeah, I actually could.
I can see her saying Brian just to fuck with you, but that's not what happened here.
She said Rodney.
That's true.
So you know how sometimes you turn on Nitro and you just can't believe the matches they've thrown together?
Yes, sir.
What random space-time continuum guys they've yanked and put in the ring together?
They put a bunch of names into a hat, and these are the two they pulled.
The Cat versus Damien.
You know what, though? You haven't watched Raw yet.
No.
We have another Kevin Owens Sami Zayn match on Raw.
It's true.
I'm not even complaining.
No, I'm complaining.
Okay.
Like a year ago, we saw the last match they were going to have together.
They've had like 5 matches
They've wrestled
since.
1,000 times. I think they've wrestled twice in like 2 or 3 weeks now.
Yes, you are correct.
Dude, at least we're getting different matches on Nitro.
Absolutely. No, I totally agree with you there.
Yeah,
This is different.
This is one of the most different matches I've ever seen.
but it was fine.
It was totally fine.
which is amazing.
Cat here was not a comedy character yet. He was a Muay Thai fighter, in fact. They just put him in a wrestling ring.
Which is an upgrade from the karate fighter that he was.
I guess so, yeah.
Sure.
They called Damien a youngster from Mexico. He was 37. A short match, basically a squash for the Cat. He won with his running kick off the top rope.
You know, there was a time where every single weekend we would drive to Oregon and work matches at Tito Carrion's gym shows.
Yes.
And he was training luchadors. And something that I learned in taking these trips is if you've ever been to an indie show and you've seen 2 guys just have a god-awful match, like 2 Americans, you ain't seen nothing until you've seen 2 luchadors
In their first match.
have a fucking god-awful match. A bad lucha match is worse than anything you'll see in this world. So you got the Cat Ernest Miller, who's never been trained, and maybe did a little bit of stuff at the power plant. Guy can barely work a match. They decided to put him in there with Damien. This should have been a fucking disaster. This was when Steve Austin said, this has got to be a rib, this match. But you know what? It wasn't a rib, and they had a pretty decent match, and all I could think was, you know what? If Ernest the Cat Miller had trained with someone competent and had gone out and done like a whole bunch of matches for a couple of years with a bunch of different guys, he would have been fucking amazing. He was so good despite everything working against him.
This may have been his best match
Yeah.
in a lot of ways.
And despite him having a good match, in spite of him wearing these huge, oversized Muay Thai gloves,
Yes. They may have been Brock Lesnar's gloves.
they were comically big.
For the first of, I believe, 5 times in the show, maybe more, Bischoff and Hogan came out for a promo. Did any of us actually keep track of the times the
12.
NWO... 12 times. The NWO theme song was played on the show.
But if you saw Hogan coming out on the ramp in this section, he was mouthing the words to Voodoo Child with the chop it down
Aha.
the edge of my hand. And so on the show, you know, in 98,
It would have been 9.
it would have exactly.
Because Hogan came out, I definitely 3 times. I'm not sure how many in total. Anyway, they're out here for this promo. And Hogan says, first of all, he talks about Savage dragging his family, Hogan's family, into this filth. That's the word he used. And by that, he meant the wrestling business. You dragged my family into this filth. So, talks about Savage's family only having a roof over their heads because of what Hogan has done in this business. Then he says, and this is a quote, "It was your choice to drag your wife into this business. Your choice to drag your, ex-wife into the dressing rooms, to mingle with the boys, to act like one of the boys, and believe me, she did the boys." And Bischoff's holding the mic, and the whole time he's doing this, he's like smiling and raising his eyebrows like, And then Hogan says this line, and like 3 seconds go by, and the gravity of what he said hits Eric all at once. His face goes white, his jaw opens, he stares at this man like, Terry?
Really
I laughed so hard. I watched it over and over and over again. It's the delay. It's the delay that made it. Everyone, the March 9th, 1998 episode of Monday Nitro, go watch it right now. It's about, 15, 20 minutes into the show. Best thing I ever saw in my life.
This was a grenade comment to him. He said it, and then 8 seconds went by, and then it exploded, and Bischoff got it.
Absolutely. Oh, it was great. So Hogan says Savage is alone on an island. The NWO is laughing at him. He's going to prove in the cage that Savage can't hang with him. Mean Gene and the Nitro Girls were on campus at Duke University.
Oh, poor Mean Gene. This whole show, they cut to him, and these frat boys rubbing his head and hugging on him and pinching him.
Jumping on camera.
Oh, my gosh, this poor guy.
Hey, he's a trooper. And you know what? They were trying. This was a great idea. Don't know if it worked out, but the idea of trying to get Nitro is like the hot thing that everybody's watching in the dorms. It's a good idea. But boy, poor Gene.
It was funnier and funnier.
And it's leading to Club Lavella.
It was funnier and funnier as the show went on because Gene kept getting more irritated in each segment.
It would be fun to just line up these segments one by one and watch them change. I also like the guy who got the co-ed naked wrestling sign on TV. Way to go. We then had legit one of the worst matches in the history of Monday Nitro.
Really?
Yeah,
Sick Boy and Lenny Lane?
Dude, I was astonished at how not horrible it was.
What?
It was no good.
Who are you?
What?
Listen.
What have you Load it up right now. I want you to watch it again.
What have you done with Bryan Alvarez?
Let me explain this to everybody. These two guys are right about the last 2 minutes of this match when it fell off a fucking cliff. But the first 2/3 of this match, I swear to God, if you go back and watch it, listen to me.
It's not like this went an hour, Brian.
Go back and watch the first 2/3 of this match. It was fine.
So you're saying it was fine for 2 minutes, then bad for
It
one?
went 4:27.
Okay, for 2.5 minutes, it was not bad at all.
Bryan
and
Alvarez.
then it fell off a cliff. And let me tell you something. If you want to talk about the bad stuff in this match, you know who was worse? Was Lenny Lane.
Yes.
I thought that Hammer was the worst wrestler I'd ever seen. I thought he was worse than Pietrov. He went in here, he was mildly competent.
Sick Boy.
Lenny Lane, Sick Boy.
Yeah.
Lenny Lane was mildly competent, but then they did the spot where Lenny goes for a skull-crushing finale. Never understood how talented The Miz was.
Right.
He fucked this move up. Then he goes for a quebrada, fucks it up, literally could have broken his neck.
Oh, yeah.
Match is falling apart to an epic degree, and then Sick Boy pedigrees the guy for the pin.
How about the
But I promise you, the first half, the first 2 minutes was way better than I expected.
How about the spot where they decided to do a dive right next to the ring steps, and Lenny Lane crashed to the floor, narrowly missing these stairs with his skull?
Yeah.
I may have hit him.
All right.
But you know what?
I determined it necessary to read my entire review now.
All right.
Sick Boy versus Lenny Lane. Sick Boy did one of the worst lockups I've ever seen. I watched it like 5 times. Lodi had "Go Heels" written on his back, a great basketball and pro wrestling in-joke. Lane did a dive onto both Sick Boy and Lodi, and somehow nobody caught him. Then he hit a horrendous missile dropkick. What an awful match this is. Sick Boy hit an F5. Really? Apparently, for the record, the show was in Wake Forest country. Sick Boy missed a top rope elbow and looked like he landed right on the point of his elbow. Lane made a horrendous comeback.
What's wrong with the top rope elbow landing on your elbow? It's a top rope elbow.
It's
gonna get
fake,
hurt.
Brian.
He did the best top rope elbow in history.
How in the hell did this match make TV? Lenny
That's live.
botched a springboard stunner worse than John Cena ever has. Sick Boy won with a pedigree of all things. This was an all-time horrible match right here. Worst match of the year for 1998 was Hollywood Hogan versus Warrior, which was worse than this, but my God, this was awful.
Wow.
I also find it ironic the Sick Boy's finishing maneuver is a pedigree, and he calls it the cure.
Let's talk about this pedigree, by the way.
It wasn't that bad.
Well, it looked great, honestly. But,
Oh, see?
But
What'd
the
I tell
reason
y'all?
is, when you do a pedigree, the idea is you hook the guy's arms, and like just before impact, you let go so you can break his fall.
Right.
And Hunter, of course, has gone so over with it, he doesn't have to do that anymore. So he lets go of the guy's arms, and the guy catches himself, and that's fine. Sick Boy grabs poor Lenny, plants his head between his legs, hooks his arms, grasps his hands like he's putting on a submission hold. Like he's trying to choke the guy out or something. And he jumps, and he goes up, and he goes down, and those hands never came unclasped. Just dropped him right on his face.
That'll learn him.
I guess.
I liked it. Till the end.
I don't think you and I have ever disagreed on anything like we've disagreed on this
That's
match.
probably true. Hey, listen, I told you. I'll grant you the second half. First half was not too bad. Oh, wow, a guy did a dive and didn't get caught all right. If you're going to fucking take stars off a match for that, you may as well take stars off every fucking match. Everybody fucks up their dives nowadays.
Nobody does them by the stairs.
Well, yeah. In the old days, you would do something easy because the other guy was going to catch you. Now you do crazy shit and you just land on a guy. And everybody prays that no one will be killed.
Yes.
Can't take that away from them. They were ahead of their time.
They're innovative.
Yeah. They were like, I'll just jump in the air and land on you.
Mike today brought Giant out for a promo. So Giant comes out in his street clothes in a neck brace, right?
Yep.
There's a collar on his neck to limit his mobility and protect his neck.
Yes.
He comes out and he looks to the left and he looks over to the right. So he says, yes, I have a bad neck, but Nash also has a bad back because he powerbombed him. Now we are even going into the pay-per-view.
It's not even.
Been looking for you all backstage, Nash. I can't find you. You're yellow. You're hiding from me. I've got a few friends.
Where is he hiding? He's a monster.
Nash Giant pointed that out.
He's skinny. Could have been behind a pole.
Said, you're the second biggest guy in this company. I can't find you. So out comes Sting and Randy Savage. Sting, by the way, is wearing the world title for once. He's been on the show every week and seems like he never actually has the belt with him. So Sting's standing there. Savage is running his mouth. And Sting starts whacking the turnbuckles with the baseball bat in silence. Savage does all the talking. And we've been talking about this since Starrcade. How the sabotage of Sting was not a one-night deal. But it really hit me how complete this whole cutting him off at the knees was. Austin was complaining about having the rug pulled out from under him. No. Well, they did to Sting. When they're standing here, I realize Sting is now, at best, third from the top on the babyface totem pole. He's clearly behind Savage and Giant right now. So, Savage challenges Hogan to find two partners for a 6-man tag. And that's that. Another match I can't believe actually happened.
Goldberg and Crusher Khrushchev.
Can you imagine
No.
Crusher Khrushchev wrestling shirtless on national TV in 1998?
Hey,
Doesn't
it
look
was
bad.
fine.
Yeah.
And you know what? For the record, Barry Darsow lasted longer in the ring than Kevin Owens.
That's true.
And Brock Lesnar.
That's also true.
And it was...
He got offense.
This match was actually pretty good, too.
It was a Goldberg squash. Goldberg beat it for a minute.
This was so great. It's too bad that Brock is winning at Mania because this was like... Here's what happens. Darsow gets the heat, and he beats on Goldberg, and he beats on Goldberg, and he beats on Goldberg, and finally he rams his head into the buckle, and then Goldberg gets pissed off, and he just spears the shit out of him and jackhammers him.
That's correct.
There was no transition. There was nothing, and it didn't need it. Goldberg got mad, and he speared and jackhammered the guy. And dude, when he went headfirst into the buckle, and then got mad and speared him, the roof blew off this place.
Yep.
Jackhammered the guy and won. This was a great 5-minute Goldberg match.
Grown men jumping up and down.
Oh, yeah.
I was jumping up and down.
Back at Duke, Kimberly plugged the Nitro girls in bikinis on the website. 20 years later in the future, I can still hear the modems cracking and popping and sizzling into life as everyone tried to download this.
I just love the idea that she goes, we got a special surprise for our WCW internet fans.
That's right.
This strange, tiny group of people that have the internet.
A niche audience.
1998.
Yeah.
You can get pictures of us, what we'll be wearing next week at Club Lavella.
Sometimes nothing more than a tan, she says.
That's what she said.
Barely more than a tan.
That's true. That is actually a very important
All right,
difference.
That is true. I
For those of you that
misspoke.
don't remember this period, if you logged onto this website in 1998 and clicked the button for one of the pictures of Kimberly and little more than a tan,
Then you went out and got lunch.
you may have gotten your picture by the end of the show.
Yes.
And you sure as shit didn't get no video.
God, no. Scott Hall comes out. He runs down Randy Savage. He volunteers to team with Hulk Hogan later. He calls out Sting. Now, I mentioned earlier how badly Sting had been buried. I watch Nitro every week here, this Retro Nitro show. I had completely forgotten that Sting and Scott Hall had a match at Uncensored. It's a non-factor. It's irrelevant. So, yes.
I think it's no, it's not a cage match, is it?
No, Savage and Hogan
Yeah,
cage
that's
match. It's a world championship match. The one that Hall's finally getting after winning World War III 6 months ago.
Right, because Hogan had the belt, and they weren't going to do that.
So, to recap, Hall comes out, pledges allegiance to Hogan, offers to team with him later, goes to the back. They go to commercial. Out comes Kevin Nash. He pledges allegiance to Hulk Hogan. Going to team with him later.
This is what happens when you have a 3-hour show and you have to fill some time.
And they both got music and entrance.
So here is the promo. Yeah. This, I bet with commercials, I bet this whole thing took 15 minutes. So here's the promo Nash cut, essentially. He said he was still in pain for when Giant powerbombed him, but he's going to fight through this pain and get his revenge at Uncensored. He rallied the crowd behind him for support, said he'd be willing to fight anytime. What a great heel! Kidman versus Dean Malenko.
This was the best match out of all the hours of wrestling I watched this week.
Yeah. This is the best match nobody cared about.
I thought it was a good basic match.
Their execution was very good. Nobody cared about these men. Jericho comes out to watch.
And by the way, have you forgotten the tag match with Raven, Saturn, DDP, and Benoit?
Oh, yeah, that was good.
That was way better than this match.
I apologize.
Yeah. Jericho comes out to watch. He is talking to the flock, and Raven's not there. So apparently he's trying to take over the lead, usurp the flock. Dean wins with a gutbuster off the top and a cloverleaf. Jericho turns to the flock and says, "Let's get him." And they all get into the ring, as the announcers noted, slowly. And they get in there, and he says, "Come on, guys, let's attack Malenko." And they don't. They turn on him instead. They pound him to dust. He runs away. Flock looks at Malenko. Malenko just turns and leaves. And the other comeback, takeaway from this is, boy, Ron Reese is huge.
Ron Reese is a big dude. He stepped out of that Stuck Mojo music video right into the flock.
He did.
And boy, they got him some gear.
Yeah.
Oh, it's the flock.
Black
the
shirt,
flock.
rip off the sleeves.
Yeah.
For them jean shorts. So everyone in the flock has.
I know.
Oh, you don't wear armor?
A suit.
Actually, that would be cool if you wore armor.
He wore a mummy costume once, and a ninja costume. This is his best look, can I think about it. Clothes. Just regular off-the-rack clothes. Hogan and Bischoff came back out. By this point, and we're not even halfway through the show yet, even the announcers are sick of the NWO theme.
This is hour number 2.
Yeah.
They started hour number 1.
Yes. So Hogan and Bischoff say Savage is stupid. They will have no trouble beating him in a 6-man tag for later. And show the North Carolina Tar Heels football coach who was literally sitting right next to the flock. That made me laugh. Probably tried to give Reese a scholarship. Earlier today, back at Duke, Goldberg and Disco Inferno were signing autographs. Can you imagine if you're a kid at Duke University, you get an autograph and your options are Goldberg or Disco Inferno? Mr. Bill?
It's going to be a tough one.
Yeah. Oh, God.
Dude. So you got Bryan Adams. You sign him to WCW. He's no good. You know this. So who the fuck do you put him in the ring with for a match? Chaos of high voltage. Goes way too long. Rage interferes. Chaos gets, I guess, the heat, even though he's the babyface.
See, I think he made a comeback.
Adams, who is a heel, beats up both men simultaneously.
Yep.
2 men who had to cheat to try to win. He used a tilt-a-whirl slam, and then he beats up Rage, and he demands the referee count the pin.
That's correct.
This was TV death, this segment right here.
These two are 2 jacked up dudes, and Adams called for, I'm going to do a press body slam.
Dude.
Oh, and the thing that infuriated me, he picks him up for a pile driver, and as he sits, he lets go of the man.
Dude, he does that every time.
That did happen.
Oh my! And he let go of him to break his own fall with his hands.
Yes, Bryan Adams did this on every one of his pile drivers. He had the worst pile driver in the history of wrestling.
How about protecting your?
Yeah, there's a lot to hate
my
here.
gosh.
There was a lot to
Craig,
hate about this segment.
you got to protect your ass.
No, you got to protect the man you're working with.
You got to protect your ass.
Great.
Thank you.
There's a smile on Brian's face. Excuse me. Craig, take over.
You only get one ass. You got a lot of opponents.
What? I'm dead.
You're disgusting.
I have died. Bryan Alvarez killed me. Anyway, this fucking sucked and was stupid. Conan comes out for a promo.
This fucking sick.
More NWO music. He refuses to wrestle Hoovy tonight, but says he found someone Hoovy's height, weight, and ability. He's not as hairy as Hoovy, though.
And age.
And age, he said.
Yeah.
I couldn't find someone as hairy as Hoovy. I'd have to go to the zoo to find that.
Ha ha!
And if you beat this man, Hoovy, then you can wrestle me. And the announcer said he's got to have some kind of scheme going on here.
No shit.
And Bobby Heenan says he's got something up his sleeveless shirt.
That was awesome.
Bobby Heenan's the best.
Heenan's so over all this shit.
So Hoovy comes out, and then the NWO theme plays again. It's Scott Norton, everyone.
Jesus Christ. It was King Kong versus the airplanes. That's what this was.
No, an airplane.
Yeah, an airplane.
The airplane did not win.
Yes.
Norton won with a shoulder breaker.
All you need to know about this match is they destroyed Hoovy. This was Hoovy's reward for removing his mask. He gets destroyed by Scott Norton, and Tony, God bless him, is trying so fucking hard to put over Hoovy. He's a guy that just will never give up.
He was in that bear hug and didn't quit.
He didn't give up in that bear hug or that other move. He's got so much heart.
All this while Hoovy's tights read, "Never surrender."
That's right.
Well, he didn't. He
Should
got
have.
pinned.
As Bobby Heenan noted, even better off. Benoit, DDP, Page, or DDP, Raven video package. Followed by Benoit and DDP versus Raven and Saturn. Very good tag match. Had a lot of time. Page was the biggest dude in the match. Still a great Ricky Morton. Saturn hit a stratospheric top rope leg drop.
Gosh. If this was in the old Portland Sports Center, I remember Billy Two Eagles jumping off the top rope and hitting the light rack with his head. Saturn would have done the same thing.
If this had been in the Peachtree Studios, he'd just gone through the ceiling and gotten stuck.
That's right.
So Benoit finally tags in, whips everyone's ass naturally. He locks Raven in the crossface, but then Page hits a diamond cutter and lands on Benoit in the process. So Benoit gets up and he and Page brawl with each other, and they brawl to the back and get counted out. So it was a crap finish, but it made sense for the storyline, and everything up to that had been very good.
You know, I was watching this match, and it was so great, and the finish came. Normally I would be furious, but you're exactly right. This is proof that it is possible to have a great match with a bullshit finish and have it work and not feel like a ripoff.
It was a great way to... It was very creative the way they actually got them hot at each other.
Yeah.
Well,
The diamond cutter off the top rope and actually bonking into...
that I disagree with.
Okay.
Because nobody moved. Like, Benoit's in the middle of the ring in the crossface, and DDP looked like an idiot. He went for a diamond cutter and jumped off onto Benoit. And then I guess they were claiming it was supposed to be an accident. I looked at it like, you aimed at the guy. What was your plan, Paige? But they set up the three-way at the pay-per-view.
Goldberg and Disco spent time at the Duke Children's Hospital.
Disco Inferno.
Yeah. Hey, youngsters,
Let's dance.
shake your booty.
They're in the hospital, Vinny. That's probably not going to happen.
Some are up and around. Back at the party,
Get your IV bag and
everyone said,
cut a rug.
everyone they talked to said, man, Domino's Pizza is the best pizza we ever had.
Lies.
Remind me, if I go to North Carolina, don't get any pizza.
Fair.
For the second time on this show, a match I cannot believe actually happened. Conan versus Davey Boy Smith.
This was not good.
This guy cannot catch a break. One terrible match after another. Then they're doing a match, and Bulldog hits a power slam off the ropes. And he hits a move, and I'm thinking, remember when that used to be like kind of his finisher? He'd do the running power slam, and he'd beat guys. Now he's just doing it as a move. Just a power slam off the ropes. Then he pinned him.
Yep. Out of nowhere.
I was like, well, any interest I had in Hoovy versus Conan, which was none, now I have less.
This was so weird because the finish was Conan did a leapfrog, Davey Boy did a leapfrog, Davey caught him with a power slam and pinned him, and the whole thing came off like it looked like Conan actually got hurt on the power slam and just stayed down. Like it was not the planned finish. Is how it
he
looked
didn't
like.
move.
Yeah. Now the other part about this match, Do you recall earlier on Raw when they said, be sure when you're ordering WrestleMania you don't get the wrong show? They plugged a Nitro on April 27th in Norfolk, Virginia at the Scope. Don't be fooled, fans. You want to go to the Scope in Norfolk, Virginia. That's the wrestling show you want to go to. So both companies think their fans are dumb. That was the lesson of this night. Let's see. Tenay brought Ric Flair out for a promo. Wasn't much, actually. He sucked up to the Carolina fans. He vowed to beat up Kurt Hennig later.
Dude, this was the best you could possibly do with a minute to talk.
Basically.
It was awesome. Place went nuts.
Disco Inferno versus Chris Jericho.
So today I tweeted about Jericho. This was what I was watching when I came to the conclusion that Chris Jericho is an all-time great.
He has turned the corner in the last few weeks, and he is...
Last few weeks?
The last few weeks after he got Hoovie's mask, he...
Oh, I thought you meant the last few weeks of WWE.
No. He has become...
That time he walked out in the main event?
He's become a great heel and fun to watch.
Here's the point about Chris Jericho. This guy has been a star and often a main eventer for 25 years all over the world. Mm-hmm. He was in ECW, he was in WCW, Smoky Mountain, Japan, Mexico, WWE. He's been champion multiple times. He's the fucking top babyface on Raw, I think, right now.
Might be.
Maybe Goldberg, I guess. 25 years. And you know what? There's a lot of fellas who were top guys, but they had The Rock, for example. The Rock had been in wrestling for 2 weeks, and it was determined that this guy is going to be the biggest star in the business by the year 2000. Look at this guy. They gave him every opportunity imaginable. Hunter married Steph. It's an obvious one. Some guys look like Goldberg. Some guys look like Batista or whoever. But you know what? This poor fucking guy, I shouldn't say this poor fucking guy. This guy was attempted to be held down everywhere he went that he made it big. They tried to hold this guy down in WCW. They tried to hold this guy down in WWE for years and years and years. He didn't have to marry anybody's wife. He found a way to reinvent himself in every single company. And despite all of the obstacles in his way, more than most people, this guy's been a fucking star and main eventer for 25 years. That's an all-time legend Hall of Famer right there. It's kind of crazy to think about.
And with all of that said, he wrestled the Disco Inferno, and Disco had a great match with Chris Jericho.
That Disco's a lot better.
They had the people believing that Disco had won the TV title with a rolling neckbreaker, a move he has never beat anyone with. Shortly thereafter, Jericho cut him off and won with the Boston Crab. A success, I wrote. I also like how, before the match, Jericho comes out, he's wearing Hoovie's mask. So they're talking about that.
Yes.
And then he's going to, what is that shirt he's got on? What is that? Is that a Nitro shirt? Is that a Rey Mysterio shirt? And I had not been looking, so I went back to see what the shirt was. It was Monday Night Jericho.
Yeah.
Why was this so complicated?
You muted me, Brian.
I did.
We're good. Oh, let's see. Back at Duke, here is where Gene had enough of his head being rubbed. Guys, the poor guy's been molested all night long. And
yes.
He had enough. Chavo Guerrero versus Booker T. Eddie comes out to argue with Chavo.
In street clothes, which for Eddie is pants.
And pants and no shirt.
Yeah.
He did nothing else on the show.
Right.
He did not wrestle earlier. He did not wrestle later. But he was wearing pants and not a shirt.
So when you're Eddie Guerrero, that's your street clothes.
That's why he's Latino Heat.
It's warm in North Carolina this time. No,
March?
Probably not.
Fucking warmer than it is here.
Well, yeah. So, Chavo and Eddie are arguing. Booker intervenes. Shoves Eddie outside. The match begins. It's way worse than you would think. They're tripping all over each other. Booker wins with a missile dropkick. And Eddie consoles Chavo, but then drops him with a brainbuster. And that's that. Went back to find his shirt.
All right, so tomorrow in North Carolina, 73 degrees. It fucking snowed here.
Yeah, the pass is closed like
Today
15 miles from my house.
Bullshit.
Yeah.
Sick of it.
Kurt Hennig versus Ric Flair. Flair cut a promo promising this was for Winston-Salem, for WCW, and for every horseman that ever walked the aisle. They brawled a few minutes. Flair hung him in the tree of woe, laid a chair in his face, and the NWO attacked for the DQ.
Dude, this was an awesome 4 minutes.
Sure.
You could not have a better 4 minutes than the 4 minutes they had right here.
The between this match and the promo, Flair got the absolute most out of his 5 minutes of TV time. No doubt about that. No doubt about that. So they're brawling with Flair afterwards when Bret Hart runs out to make the save. I mentioned earlier I forgot Sting had a title match. I forgot Bret Hart existed. What they did with this guy, they signed away the rival company's champion without him ever losing legitimately the title, and all they had him do is come out of the show and brawl for 2 minutes. Why did they sign him? What was the point?
And he was in his street clothes. It took me a double take to figure out who it was.
Yes. I mean, we knew all this. We knew he was wasted in WCW, but you watch these shows, it slaps you in the face.
Dude, just wait. Just wait.
Yeah, it doesn't get better.
He has been in the company now for 3 months. I believe he has had 2 matches, one on TV, and done a few promos. Which actually, most of the Flair promos were great. But ever since the Flair match, he's just a phantom. Scott Steiner and Scott Norton versus Lex Luger and Rick Steiner. Rick came out with the Doberman pincher, which quickly disappeared, but it did give Heenan a chance to say, they brought their sister, the missing Steiner. Bobby Heenan was the best thing about Nitro, if any of you have forgotten.
Scott Norton working twice.
Scott Norton doing double duty.
They have all those guys
once and a half.
They have all those guys under contract. And Norton, we're going to need you to work twice tonight.
The way he disposed of Hoovy totally fit in, though. So, yes,
you know,
Brian.
earlier tonight there was a tag match, and they brawled and got counted out, and it worked.
Right.
This was one fucking bullshit finish too many. So I turned on the show. And so did the fans.
And it was weird seeing Scott Steiner cowardly heel.
Yes,
in this
brother.
match. He ran away.
The story, of course, he has just turned on his brother, so now, of course, he's afraid to face his brother. And
listen,
on the one hand, I am with Craig. It is very weird to see Scott Steiner back down from anyone. On the other hand, I was watching Rick Steiner throw Scott Norton around and said, yep, I'd hide too.
Dude, fuck that. We all watched Rick Steiner and Vincent last week.
Also true.
Yeah.
Also true.
If I were Scott Steiner, I saw that match, I'd fucking run for my life too.
Yes.
My fucking brother's mad. He's gonna hurt me.
He is. He is not a friendly dog. So, let's see. That's right. I forgot what happened because something happened. They're doing this match, and all 4 men brawled to the back and got counted out. Because not Rick Steiner, nor Scott Steiner, nor Scott Norton, nor Lex Luger could actually do a job here.
And then they did the same thing in the main event.
No, someone actually got pinned there. Hogan, Hall, and Nash versus Sting, Savage, and Giant. So of all the people, as noted, Giant was injured so badly he could not put on clothes. He got changed into a singlet.
And it's worse. This fucking guy comes out with a neck brace on and clothes. He's got like a t-shirt and pants on.
Right.
Looking fat as can be.
Well, he's been hurt.
He's out there, and it's preposterous enough that they say, no doctor will clear this man. But he's wrestling anyway. Okay, that's ridiculous enough. But then they get the heat on him, and everyone is punching, kicking, chopping, pounding on his bad neck.
Yes.
Right.
It's like, isn't a referee's job to, like, stop the match? I realize that it's 1998, and in 2016, all people are worried about, or 2017, is lawsuits. WWE can't do anything. They're worried about lawsuits. It's fucking giants in the ring. This was Lawsuit City. It's ridiculous.
So, worked him over forever. All the heat, by the way, it's like a 5-minute heat segment. All it is, as Brian noted, is hitting the neck.
Hitting the neck of the Big Show.
And choking the neck.
Yeah.
So finally, they're doing the triple roar spot where they get him in the corner, and all 3 guys are in the ring. They got him in the corner, and they're just clubbering away on him. And he does the big roar. And I guess nobody clued in Sting, because he had like run in to try to hit a low blow, and Giant does this roar, and Nash goes flying, Hall goes flying, Hogan goes flying, and Sting went flying as well. Collateral damage.
Well, things like that happen.
It does. Live TV. So, Savage tags in. Giant, let me go back. Giant is dragging his head is hanging by a thread at this point. He drags himself to the corner, tags in Savage, place goes nuts, and then suddenly everything stops. And Savage jumps in the ring, no one does anything. Giant gets better, he chases Nash away. Savage...
Well, I can explain what happened. So when Savage got in the ring, the whole thing was the Giant had to chase Nash backstage.
Right.
And so they had to wait until the cameras had filmed Giant chasing Nash backstage.
I see.
Nash can't fucking move.
No.
So it took him an hour to get from the ring to the backstage area. Giant had to let him get a head start because Nash is so fucking slow.
Bad back, too bad knees.
This took like 30 seconds for them to get this fucking thing on screen.
Yeah.
And Savage and Hogan are just in the ring doing nothing.
Yeah. So Savage finally runs wild, and Sting and Hall get involved. They're brawling everywhere. And in the melee, outruns Brutus Beefcake. He wipes out Savage with a stunner, and Hogan covers him for the clean pin.
Clean?
Well, why did I say
The fuck is a clean
I
pin?
don't know why I said that. It was a decisive pin. Savage was dead.
Now, did Hogan forget that Brutus Beefcake was the disciple when he yelled, "This is the apocalypse, brother"?
No, he called him the disciple in here too.
Okay.
He wasn't doing a promo.
He
was
called
just-
him the Apocalypse, the Disciple, and the Disciple of Apocalypse.
Really?
Yeah, which is the DOA.
I got the impression that the man is the disciple and the move is the apocalypse.
I see.
Oh.
Okay.
That's what I got.
That makes sense.
So, anyway, yeah, Brutus Beefcake, unstoppable monster.
Dude.
So it was a weird finish, but at least we got a finish. And up to that point, the match had been very fun.
Randy Savage doing a job for Brutus Beefcake's fake star.
I was trying to figure out, well, I guess in hindsight I know, but what did they promise Savage to get him to do this?
He's probably beating Hogan, I guess.
He might.
There's no title on the line. That's the show, everybody. Hey, things picked up this week.
They were better this week.
But there's a lot of cracks in the armor of WCW. And there's still a lot of bullshit on Raw. That's the story of the Monday Night Wars here. March 7, 1998.
Nitro, number 131, 3/16/98. Really, it's too bad Austin wasn't on 3/16.
The best show of 1998 right here.
The spring break show from Club Lavella
The hottest crowd they've had yet.
for a while.
Literally and physically.
Well, that's true.
Yeah,
Physically and figuratively.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So it's a nightclub on the beach in Florida. There's a big giant pool, open air environment, and right there on the beach, you could have gone in the ocean if they wanted to. It was the ring, by the way, was floating in the middle of the pool. That's a
So
key
awesome.
detail.
So awesome. When I start my promotion, it's going to be in a pool. It's going to be a floating ring.
And as I said on Twitter, it'd be hard for angry fans to jump the rail.
No, it wouldn't. They just swim to the ring.
Yeah, but they'd be drunk and they'd drown.
Right.
They ain't going to drown. It was 3 feet deep.
You never know.
He's slowly coming this way.
So it was also the night after Uncensored. They showed Hogan. Okay, they didn't actually give the finish. Here's what happened. Hogan and Savage were fighting in the cage, and they were fighting. The Disciple interfered in a cage match. Sting lowered from the ceiling to even the odds, but Savage turned on Sting, laid him out, and walked out of the cage. So ordinarily the cage is to keep people out and keep wrestlers in. Here men got in and the wrestlers got out, and I don't know if there was a finish at all. I have no idea what happened.
Nice recap.
So the NWO comes out in the nightclub, and most of them are in their gear. Hogan's got his boots on and that torn up half shirt he wears, or they got the NWO t-shirt on, or whatever. Mm-hmm. And Hall and Nash are on spring break.
Smartest guys in the room.
They are in cargo shorts and flip-flops and Hawaiian shirts. These men have it figured out.
You know what I loved is Rude comes out with a full mustache. He grew it back.
Quickly, too.
Dude, it was like a week.
He probably sat down and flexed and it grew.
So apparently the whole thing, the reason he shaved his face in the first place was because that was the night where he was on Raw and Nitro at the same time, because Raw was taped and Nitro was live. And on the Raw show, he had a beard. And so he shaved his face so everybody would know that Nitro was live when he was there. And then I guess he looked at his face and went, fuck, I need my mustache back.
My face is naked.
Grew it back.
So Hogan celebrates Nash's win over the Giant. Despite all of Giant's cheating, Nash proved he's the real Giant in wrestling. Says he loves Randy Savage as much as he's ever loved anyone. And Savage had put him to the test. But he'd beaten Savage within an inch of his life, and now Savage is back in the fold. This is how Hollywood Hogan believes it actually went down. He taught Savage a lesson by giving a solid beating.
Yeah, this is a great heel.
Yeah.
He's full of shit, and you know it.
Yes.
At all times, by the way.
But he also believes his own shit.
Oh,
At
yeah.
all times, by the way.
Yes. This describes Hulk Hogan, by the way, at any point in the past 30 years. Mm-hmm. So tonight he announces he's teaming with Savage against Sting and Luger, and this will be Savage's chance to prove to the NWO he can carry the load. Then he said Sting wouldn't be there because Savage had beaten him up just for Bischoff. And this left me all very confused. Goldberg versus Lodi.
This was a savage beating.
Was Lodi, did he later become Kiwi?
Yeah.
Okay.
Kiwi.
I believe he may have taken the 2 biggest spears of all time then. Because I remember the Kiwi one.
Dude, this was awesome. Goldberg just beat the shit out of this guy.
Here's everything that happened. He press landed him, speared the hell out of him, jackhammered the hell out of him, pinned him. That is move by move on account of the match. Nothing has been removed.
Well, no, it was a press slam into a power slam. His famous press slam, drop
yes.
him on the shoulder and power slam him.
Yes.
But it looked like a car wreck.
It really did.
Like, it's not the moves on paper. It was the execution of the moves.
That's a good word to use.
Yes, Goldberg is a guy where
Lodi was executed.
he was very, very green and very, very raw. And thankfully, he stayed that way his whole career. Seriously.
That's true.
Like, if Goldberg would have improved, that would have hurt his character. The magic of his character was he was a wild green hoss that had not been broken in, and he just ran folks over. And it was ugly, and it was awesome.
The other thing to note here is that Lodi came out with signs, as he always did, one of which was for RF video.
That was weird.
And the announcers noted he was giving free plugs to a bunch of goofs.
Wow.
Well,
They're not wrong. And then the Flock tried to attack Goldberg after the match. He killed them one by one. And the power slam he gave Kidman, it put the power slam he gave Lodi to shame. Goldberg was a force of nature here.
Maybe that was the precedent of the power slam.
It may have
One
been.
way or the other, everybody was left for dead.
Yeah.
Which, of course, I believe is the setup for Goldberg Raven, where Goldberg ends up winning the U.S. title later.
did you see the ROH pay-per-view this last weekend?
Of course.
Did you see when they tossed Jay Briscoe high in the air and then caught him and power slammed him? That
Yes.
move? It was just like that.
It's awesome.
It was awesome.
Somebody went to spring break at Club La Vela for Nitro and brought a sign reading, "Possum Snout loves Sting."
It's got to be a radio DJ in Florida.
I guess.
It's got to be.
That's probably it. I was thinking like the smallest town in all of Arkansas or something, but that makes more sense. Fit Finlay versus Ultimo Dragon.
This was awesome.
Now, you may, if you've seen a little bit of these men, you think, well, you've got a big Irish brawler and a small Japanese man who wrestles like a luchador. This is going to be a styles clash. Oh, no. They did and I shouldn't be surprised because they're great, but they did a great job of melding their styles together, still wrestling like they do, but having a great match, and it worked seamlessly together. It was awesome.
By the way, Finlay has cut the mullet, bleached his hair blonde, and got rid of the handlebar mustache.
Yes. This is his debut with the, I guess the hair he still has today.
Yeah,
Or
pretty
close.
much.
So there is, in fact, a city that is called Possum Snout. Actually, it's Tallapoosa, Georgia.
You take that back.
And they attempted to brand themselves Possum Snout. So that must be where that came from.
What was the first one again?
Tallapoosa. Thank you.
It sure is. So they're having this great match, and Finlay avoids the Dragon Sleeper one time, and Dragon hits the soccer ball kick. You know, he sit the guy up and kick him in the back, and Finlay just got up, threw him down, and hit one of his own. It was so glorious. And finally, Dragon hooked the Dragon Sleeper for the win. Great match.
It was very, very good.
Scott Norton versus Chris Adams.
Like this too, for other reasons.
Norton beat the hell out of him for 3 minutes. Adams hit like one move, and then Norton hit the shoulder breaker in one. And then Norton cut a promo into the camera, which he slobbered all over.
It was like his intent was to get as much moisture upon the lens as he possibly could.
There's no horse or camel or llama that could have spat more on this camera. It was impressive. show that the all-day party they've been having down at the beach, including a bikini contest to crown Miss Nitro.
This was awesome.
Let it be known.
What's that face for, Craig?
So dedicated.
Am I lying?
So dedicated am I to my role as a pro wrestling critic that I watched every second of this.
Yeah. I was going to fast forward and then I rewound.
Do you remember those spring break?
You're watching this on Daily Motion, which I'm not, but they have they have a slow motion. You can watch
do they now?
Yeah. It would take twice as long to watch this. It's crazy.
I'm going to have to investigate that just to prove you're not lying to me.
Remember back in the day, MTV would do their spring break from wherever, and they would have a bikini contest. Well, the folklore is a bunch of strippers decided they were going to go participate in this contest. I've never seen less fabric in my entire life.
Possible.
If you're...
I have seen less fabric, I'm sure.
Okay.
The point is, Craig saw a bunch of hot strippers on MTV.
Cool.
Right.
Well, it is cool.
In clothes, though. Not cool.
Barely.
Let's talk about this next match.
I'd rather talk about women in bikinis.
So would I, but we must discuss Davey Boy... Listen to this match.
Okay.
Davey Boy Smith and Jim the Anvil Neidhart against Mike Enos and Wayne Bloom.
The Destruction Crew.
This was
the Beverly Brothers.
Fucking horrendous.
It really, really was.
Am I wrong?
That was the worst thing I saw all week.
This was the worst thing I've seen all year.
Are we sure that Jim Neidhart knew how to run the ropes?
I noticed that too.
I'm not sure that Jim Neidhart knew how to do anything at this point. This was so unbelievably terrible.
In fact, there was a point in here where Larry Zbyszko channeled one Bryan Alvarez when he built a guy up and then tore him down quickly when he said Mike Bloom holds some record in a deadlift competition, and he said, with those legs.
That's what he said.
I missed that.
Oh, that's exactly what he said.
Well, it's funny, because if you look at Wayne Bloom here, he had a giant upper body and very, very skinny legs. He was also terrible in this match.
He was so much that the legs are skinny, it's also that the legs are long.
Yeah.
Like, this man was not built to do heavy deadlifts.
No.
I mean, he was not... Anyway. People are going to say, what are you talking about?
He has long, skinny legs and a long torso.
He had a disadvantage, which he overcame with great strength.
Yes. Now he was, for a guy who had
down.
been wrestling like a decade here, he was He was beyond horrible.
Well, to be
up
fair,
everything.
he was working Jim the Anvil Neidhart.
He was awful with Davey Boy.
Davey Boy. Well, Davey Boy hadn't had one good match yet.
That is true.
Still hasn't.
It get worse by the week. Now he has been working with, it was Mongo, and who was it after that? He's not getting the cream of the crop.
Didn't he wrestle Mongo twice?
May have been Mongo twice. It's not like he's in there with Benoit, Guerrero, and Malenko. He's working the fucking Destruction Crew. So Bloom fucked up the Power Slam one time, and they just kept wrestling, and Davey hit the Power Slam and won. A mess!
Well, they put the destruction in Destruction Crew, I'll tell you that much.
They couldn't entertain these drunken fans who were yelling boring again and again and again.
No shit, it was terrible.
Yeah.
It was boring. It was a horrible
I disagree.
match.
It was horrible. It was not boring. Savage, Liz, and Bischoff came out for a promo. Bischoff apologized to both of them for all they had gone through. But what's important, he says, is that Savage has seen the light. He's back in the NWO. And he moves in for a hug, but Savage pushes him away.
Once again, there's nothing better than, in Bischoff's case, an authority figure who thinks they put one over on somebody and they're so cocky about it, and then it just gets turned right in their face like Randy Savage did here.
Yeah.
That's what fans want to see. Do you hear me?
I do. So Savage says, I'm going to beat Sting for the world title. And when I do that, that'll make me in charge of the NWO. And then Hulk Hogan's going to learn what it's like to be at the bottom of the pecking order. And remember last week when Hogan had his line about Liz doing the boys, and I talked about Bischoff's reaction? Bischoff's reaction here was almost as great. Like, oh no. Now I'm going to have to deal with a pissed off Hulk. And Savage leaves, and that's that. So Raven comes out for a promo. Now, the Flock's deal is they always have 6 or 8 seats, or however many of them there are, but they always have front row seats. They can't have front row seats to the pool. It kind of defeats the purpose. So they had their own island, like off the side of the ramp. They did. The Flock Island. They just hung out there until they came into our time to wrestle.
I like that. Flock Island.
Yeah. So Raven comes in for a promo.
When I buy an island,
Yeah.
I will call it Flock Island. I'll sail my gold boat to Flock Island
Don't do that.
and back again.
You won't make it. There's a reason boats aren't made out of gold. And it's not because it's expensive. Well, partly because it's expensive. So Raven says Benoit cost him the U.S. title.
Yeah, that'd be an expensive boat, Vinny, made out of gold.
Yeah.
I don't think you understand how much gold costs,
Well, I don't.
especially nowadays.
I don't think you understand how much gold weighs.
That's just a gold-plated boat. It'd be a gimmick.
Oh, it'll be a phony gold boat. A worked gold boat.
Well, I wanted to. I want to take it to Flock Island.
Careful when you say that.
Anyway. So Raven says Benoit cost him the U.S. title. Said he had known Page many years ago, but Page had deserted them in the early years their early years in the business. He says, I know the snake is out there watching, and he'd want it this way. And they won't come out and say it, but obviously Raven and Page broke in together and both trained under Jake Roberts, and apparently they're feuding over who Jake likes more. So we had Raven versus Chris Benoit.
God damn.
What a beating.
This match went 11 minutes and 44 seconds, and 11 minutes and 40 of those seconds were Chris Benoit absolutely destroying this man. I mean, he destroyed this guy within an inch of it. Well, I got to be careful how I describe these beatings.
It is always, awkward talking about Benoit. But, yeah, I would not say it is impossible for a Chris Benoit match to be boring because he beats the other guy up for too long. But this is as close as it could get to being boring.
No, you're wrong. This was so exciting. I could have watched another 11 minutes of it. Then a chair gets in the ring. I couldn't even believe how great this was. Benoit goes for the crossface, but as he drops to the mat to put it on, he hits his own fucking face on a chair. And then Raven, who's struggling, gets to his feet, DDTs him, and pins him.
This was the loser of the match taking 90% of the match, which what it should have been.
99.
And then
What do you mean 90?
and then there was a fluke win by Raven after Benoit knocked himself out.
It was awesome.
It was great.
It didn't even make Benoit look like an idiot. He went for his move. There just happened to be a misplaced chair. It could happen to anybody.
Raven's chest was at the point of almost bleeding. It had been chopped over and over
Benoit
and
tore
over
his
again.
shirt off so you could really see it.
And while all this madness is going on, Larry Zbyszko is focused on Raven's tattoo.
Yeah, they're like, man, he's got a tattoo on his back. Is that a stained glass window?
Is that a
I'm like, who
tombstone?
the fuck cares? He's getting his ass kicked here. Can you tell me about it? I don't give a shit what his tattoo is.
Larry was not very good at his job.
No. Oh, that's true. So Raven, due to this win, gets a title match against Page at Spring Stampede. Yuji Nagata versus the Cat.
God, you know how I was putting over the Cat just last week?
Yeah.
Well, he was horrible here. Now he just does a bunch of, as Bobby Heenan described it, Muay Thai. Jumps in the air, does kicks, does some more jumping. Yuji Nagata just stomps the crap out of him. This sucked.
My favorite part is when Yuji was making a move towards him. The Cat threw a kick in the air, and he backed off. And then they just locked up. Cat could have kicked him and kept him away from him the whole time.
Yeah.
He just locked up.
It was boring. The crowd chanted boring. Literally, when the crowd started chanting boring, that's when Yuji went to a chin lock. Eventually, Cat won with a jumping kick off the top rope.
The fee-liner.
The fee-liner. Ray Traylor versus Scott Steiner.
All right,
This was awesome, too.
I got to say something here. So later in the show, Nash and Hall come out for an interview, and the Giant comes down to the ring and he scares them, and Kevin Nash responds by saying, "I'm the 1998 Cannonball Champion." Whatever. Point is, Nash jumps into the water, everybody cheers, and he swims to shore. And I thought, you are the fucking worst heel that there's ever been in the history of this business. You're the worst! So later I go back and I'm reading the Observer report on this show, and come to find out, when Ray Traylor gave Scott Steiner a lariat and sent him over the barricade and into the water, and everybody went crazy because the babyface sent the heel into the water. Turns out they were in trouble for this, Because the spot was supposed to be saved for Kevin Nash.
Yeah.
Okay.
So instead of giving the biggest pop of the night to a fucking babyface foiling a heel, Kevin Nash stole it for himself so he could jump in the fucking water and get a babyface pop when he's supposed to be a top fucking heel.
Yeah.
God, he sucks at his job.
Oh, there's more. There's more. So, Steiner, God bless Ray Traylor, but he was a big fat man.
Didn't matter.
Steiner grabbed him around the waist, threw him straight up in the air, straight back down on an overhead belly to belly. I shouldn't say straight back down, because he flipped him all the way over. This looked easy and totally safe.
Yes.
To a very, 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 very large human being. Scott Steiner's scary. And then they're brawling on the floor, and Bryan spoiled the surprise. But Scott Steiner went into the pool. Everyone cheered. And they kept on wrestling. And Traylor went up top, and Bagwell ran down and crotched him. And Scott followed with the top rope Frankensteiner, and he puts in the camel clutch. And Bagwell thinks it's over, and he gets in the ring. He realizes
idiot.
the match is still going on.
Can you pay attention, you fucking idiot?
He leaves again.
Spring break.
And then Traylor submits, and they beat him up a little bit, and they make jokes about how Scott's arms are bigger than Bagwell's waist.
I liked this match. It was a lot of fun.
It was fun.
It was a lot of fun.
But now that I have this knowledge, Kevin Nash has single-handedly ruined bumps into the pool for me.
So they showed Giant going for a powerbomb on Nash at Uncensored. The NWO all ganged up on him, and Nash broke a baseball bat over Giant's shoulder, they mentioned.
Baseball bat.
Broke a baseball bat over his shoulder, and somehow this still ended with Giant standing tall.
I mean, he always stands tall.
That's true.
Okay,
He's
you've got
the
me
Giant.
there. You got me there. Chavo came out for a match, but Eddie Guerrero cut him off in the aisle. He said, "We have reconciled last night. I have a gift for you. I want you to wear it with pride." And Chavo was starting to refuse to, and Eddie said, "You are a man of your word. You promise to do whatever I say if you lost. I am telling you to wear this shirt." So Chavo puts the shirt on. It says, "My favorite wrestler is Eddie Guerrero" on the front, and "Cheat to win" on the back. And Shivani was appalled by this shirt. So it's Chavo Guerrero versus Booker T. By now, this spring break crowd, they came to see some stars. They came to see some girls in bikinis. They came to see somebody go in the pool. Now they had seen all of it. In the third hour of the show, they didn't care about anything.
The height disparity between Chavo Guerrero and Booker T, massive.
Chavo's short, Booker is tall. There's a photo out there from one of JBL's weddings. And Taker's in the wedding party, and so is Eddie. And there's some other guys I don't know, but there's a guy with short brown hair and a goatee in between them, and he's much closer to Taker's height than he is to Eddie's. And someone asked, "Is that Chavo?"
Oh, jeez.
Is Chavo 6'8"? The answer is no. It was not Chavo. Anyway, Booker won with a missile dropkick. We had clips of young people chewing gum on the beach.
True story.
Yep. DDP versus Reese.
God. 3 weeks ago, Stuck Mojo does a wacky video, and
They referenced it.
There's a giant in there, and I'm like, who's this big guy? Oh my God, it's Ron Reese. The next week on Nitro, Ron Reese just shows up. Hey, look at this big giant dude, this huge man. Week 3, he just does a job to DDP.
Yes.
What?
We have seen Reese, I believe, twice wrestle on Nitro, and he's done jobs both times. Again, I think I said it last time too. And I'm not that he should have been main eventing pay-per-views, but I'm sure I could have found something useful for a 7'2" man.
Yeah, it's called What They Did with Braun Strowman. Like, I'm so furious that Roman Reigns beat Braun Strowman, but, like, there was a method to the madness. You build up a big, scary giant so that someone can beat him and get a rub. You don't put him on TV for 2 weeks and then have Diamond Dallas Page beat him clean in the middle.
Yeah.
What a waste.
Yeah.
They also noted that DDP was going to MTV sometime this week to Total Request Live and debut the new Stuck Mojo video.
Total Request Live.
TRL. Ah, the 90s.
You know who's on New Day Northwest today? For those of you that don't know, it's a
Seattle talk show.
I'll be nice about it. Yeah. There's a TV show around here, local, New Day Northwest.
Yeah. It's not about the New Day.
No, it's like, it's local.
Imagine the celebrities you see in the city of Seattle only, not even the Puget Sound region or Northwest, just Who is famous in Seattle right now that we can get and try to put on TV?
Who's not famous in Seattle, but is
it's
still
a
on
challenge.
this show?
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm watching New Day Northwest, and I look up, and there's a fucking old guy, and he's got a hat on, and he's got glasses, and he's got a sweater vest.
Seattle.
And he's playing his guitar, and he's singing a tune, and I'm like, is that fucking Jeff Tate of Queensryche?
He's
Sure as shit, it's Jeff Tate of Queensryche.
yeah.
He's a grandfather now.
Yeah.
He looks like Pete Gas
That's
with
not-
glasses.
That's not fair.
Just a lot older. No, he does. Except Pete Gas was in better shape.
Yeah. He's
And they're asking him, all they can do is ask him about the 80s.
yeah.
And I'm like, this poor guy. He's trying to plug his acoustic tour
Right.
around Seattle, and all they can do is talk about his haircut and what it was like to live in the 80s.
By the
I'm
way,
like,
they're-
this poor fucker.
Their biggest hit, Empire, came out in the 90s.
I know. 2017, and all they can do is ask him about the 1980s.
They won. It was a Grammy they won.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure. And I remember this is, grunge was about to happen, but it hadn't happened yet. And we're watching the news, and a local band makes it big, win a Grammy. So there it is on local Cairo TV. Queensrich.
Yeah, Queen's rich.
What the hell are we talking about? Oh, Reese.
Yeah.
I stopped caring about music in about, I'd say 1990.
Did you ever?
I did for a little while. Because I listened to Queensryche.
Yeah. Who's your
And I
band?
also listened to Halloween,
Oh my gosh, why?
which is where Chris Jericho got his name.
He's got a Halloween tattoo
Yep.
on his arm.
Yep. Dude, they were awesome. What the fuck are you talking about, Craig? I'm going to kick you out of this room. Vinny, you got to go listen to some Halloween.
I'll see what I can do.
It's awesome.
Don't do it.
I'll probably like it.
You probably will. You will. You will. You know it, Craig. You'll like it.
Better or worse than Dangerous Toys?
Oh, far better.
I'll like them.
See? Look at that.
All right. Anyway, page one with a diamond cutter out of nowhere. Reese couldn't even take this move. Chris Jericho versus Juventud Guerrera. Yes, Craig?
Jericho somehow managed to do a side ponytail out of half of his hair.
Yes. Jericho was great.
It gets better every week.
It does. I think it's purple sunglasses.
And his future was so bright that he had to wear shades.
Yes.
That's what he said.
Gotta
All the
quote Tim
college
Buck free.
kids are like, look at this geek.
Yes. So they had a very fun match. It was one of Hoovy's better days. Hoovy did Shivani called it a flying body attack, and I can think of no better phrase, because he jumped off the top rope and just collided into Jericho.
It's like he forgot what he was doing in flight.
No, you know what it was? It's a real move. It was his air hoovy, but he didn't go over the top rope to the floor. He just jumped off the top and air hoovied himself.
I see. So they're having a very good match, and Jericho just waffles in with a cruiserweight belt for the DQ. And he had cut a promo about beating Dean Malenko.
Cougar weight belt.
Did I say cougarweight? Cruiserweight belt.
Either way.
That'd be a different show.
We may see that in Mania this year.
The cougar weight belt is... Oh, never mind.
So Jericho had cut a promo about beating Dean Malenko and stealing his move. He put Hoovy in the cloverleaf, but then declared, "That's a terrible hold," and he let it go.
That's because he did it wrong.
He did it very wrong. The Outsiders came out to do their survey. If I didn't know better,
Drunk.
I'd suspect these men have been drinking. And then I started to think, how much alcohol does it take to get Scott Hall this drunk?
That was what I was thinking. I was
He
like,
must have started at noon.
this is Scott Hall hammered. That's like, they must have filled that pool with alcohol.
They just give him a straw.
And he drained it, and then they put the water in.
Scott Hall's eyes were glassy.
Oh, my God.
And he had perspiration upon his forehead. He was a sweaty, drunken mess.
Well, it's a good thing they threw him in the water.
So he does a survey. Now, you mentioned earlier Kevin Nash about being a terrible heel. Think of all the times we've been watching these 1980 shows. We just watched the show. Jim Cornette interfered to cost Ronnie Garvin the tag titles, but then a minute later denied ever having done it. Must have been somebody else. I was in the back. Kevin Nash comes out here. Does he say that I beat the Giant clean? No, he brags about using a baseball bat to win. He's happy with it. Dares the Giant to come out and fight. The Giant does. And he gets in the ring, and they get out of the ring, and Nash is laughing the whole time. And then, his big plan for going into the pool was he would climb the railing himself, declare himself the Cannonball champion, jump off, do a big cannonball, splash the crowd, everyone would cheer. That's what he did.
And then the funny thing is, Giant actually got his hands on Scott Hall.
Yes.
And oh my gosh, he's going to kill Scott Hall. He's going to choke slam him in the middle of the ring, or maybe on the platform there. He threw him into the pool.
He threw him into the pool. He press slammed him into the pool.
Hey, first off, that press slam, I looked at that and I thought, I wish somebody would do that to me. And I hate water. It looked so much fun. He's way up high in the air and he got thrown and he landed in the water.
That is step one. Hall is a big man, and he was drunk, so he was not doing much to help him.
It's true.
Giant launched him through the air.
Oh yeah, he just threw him as hard as he could.
I couldn't believe my eyes on this. He went flying, and it was a shoot throw.
Hey, listen, if you go on YouTube and you find the video I did for the Ice Bucket Challenge, I didn't even realize this at the time, but I sold it exactly like Scott Hall did when he went into the pool in 1998.
Scott Hall
I must have watched it 50 times as a kid.
Probably.
And subconsciously recreated it.
Yes. Because as you know, there's like 4 feet of water. But
because Nash stood up and walked out of the pool.
Yeah. So Hall goes flying into the water. He must have crouched down because it's 4 feet of water. He jumps straight up as high as he can with his arms at his sides.
Yeah.
And then only as he's coming back down does he start to windmill. It was great.
He sold the water like Mongo sells taking a clothesline.
There's something about, I hope that this is in the new WWE rule book, but there's something about water in wrestling where it's deadly.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. Were you not watching Raw where Sable was defaced by Luna and Goldust, but it wasn't until water got thrown in her face that she fucking had a total freak out? These men were thrown in the water. Scott Steiner was thrown in the water, and he's like, oh, I'm wet. It was terrible for him.
Hall was thrown into the water. Agonizing pain for Scott Hall.
Yep.
Nash did it for fun and walked away.
Mm-hmm. Idiot.
He killed
Do you hear me?
He killed his own bump and the bump for the other guys.
What an idiot. There's no better usage of that term. He was an idiot here.
Hogan and Savage versus Sting and Lex. So the NWO comes out together. Tension, but they come out together.
God, Buffer was on fire.
He really was.
God, he was on. I didn't write anything down, but he was just.
They flew him
He
into.
described Randy Savage as a man with. What did he say? A man with reckless disregard for his own well-being. It's like, what?
Well,
I mean, it's kind of true, but
sure.
like that's what you're going to use to put him over to the crowd.
So the NWO comes out and Lex comes out and there's no Sting. And Bischoff cuts this promo about how somehow we've screwed you, Lex. Sting's not here. You have to fight on your own.
Now, did anybody when listening to this think that they were dubbing in dramatic music? Like, you know how before a WWE title match they do that dun 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 dun?
It was.
Yes.
I'm like, what the fuck is there music for
It
in
was
this
Sting's
promo?
entrance music, wasn't it?
No, it was the helicopter.
They played. It was a
Okay,
helicopter.
okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
So yes, they did play Sting's music, but then the helicopter sound came, and a helicopter positioned itself around the ring.
This was awesome.
I don't know if they planned it this way,
No.
but helicopters created a massive amount of downforce. This wind blowing straight down to the ring. The aprons blowing over the place. The pretty yellow mats at ringside are flying through the sky.
Bischoff is pretending like he's about to be blown into the pool.
I think he ad-libbed that, but yes, he was like Dorothy when the tornado hit.
And then my favorite part is Larry Zbyszko on commentary goes, the wind's picking up.
Yeah.
It's like, you fucking goddamn idiot.
God.
This was so strong, it was taking people's signs out of their hand and they were blowing by the screen.
Yeah. And seriously, like when he said the wind's picking up, at first, I believed him.
Yeah,
and
they're
I'm
on the
like,
coast.
so
Why
hold
not?
on a second. You got a fucking helicopter right above Club Lavella with all of these people in the stands, and it's going to lower down in a windstorm,
Yeah.
and Sting's going to drop out of it? Like, you guys are fucking out of your minds. And then I realized, no, the wind this idiot's talking about is the helicopter.
Yes.
Wind's kicking up here on the Gulf.
Yeah.
It's like, you idiot.
So they panned up to the top, and sure enough, Sting was in a helicopter, and Sting then rappelled from a helicopter into the ring, which was floating in water.
How much did this cost
Now,
them?
let's think about this. You had to rent a helicopter.
Right.
You had to get some stunt company, hopefully a reliable one.
Sure.
To get Sting a harness and coach with him how to rappel from a helicopter.
I was thinking permits need to be involved.
You would like to think so?
Sure.
Don't forget they had another helicopter there to film it.
True.
So this is a massive amount of money for Sting to do his entrance on the Raw main event, or the Nitro main event. Then, within 2 minutes of being in a helicopter, he is in the ring doing moves.
Yeah, and the best part is he still has the harness on.
Yes.
So he does a big splash on I think it might have been Hall.
No, it was Savage.
So one of them, but like he's got a big metal fucking ring on his stomach.
Yes.
He does this move onto this guy, and I just thought, man, oh man. And this match was so terrible.
Yes.
Horrid.
Now, the idea was Savage went the first 8 minutes on his own. And the idea was the heels are not getting along with each other, so the babyfaces are going to kick their ass, of course. So Savage sells and sells and sells and sells and sells.
I was feeling sorry for Savage.
Hogan, yeah. Hogan is telling Savage, scolding him, do something, Randy. And finally, he can take no more, and he turns his back to the ring. At this point, Savage takes the opportunity to run over and slaps Hogan in the back, which should tag him in. Hogan starts to leave. Savage runs him down, throws him into the ring.
No. Go back a moment. Mm-hmm. So Savage is getting beaten on, and Hogan turns his back, and Savage responds with the dreaded double chop to the throat. Mm-hmm. That's how he starts his comeback. So he takes out whoever was in the ring with him, he gets to his feet, he goes over and he slaps Hogan on the back. And everyone's like, oh my God, it's a tag, it's a tag. Hogan drops off the apron. Savage is still in the ring. Savage gets rolled up, and the ref starts counting.
Yes.
Yep.
And I'm like, so that wasn't a tag.
No.
I'm totally confused. And then it turns out it was a tag.
Yes.
Like, the ref didn't know what was going on. Nobody knew what was going on. Yes, Craig?
I think the tag was the cue for Brutus to hit the ring, or hit the ringside area.
No, he'd been down there.
No, he was coming out, and then Hogan ran over to Beefcake and put him in front, because Savage was going to attack Hogan in the middle of the match.
One way or the other.
Yeah. So eventually, Hogan ends up in the ring. Okay.
Explain this.
Disciple comes out and just destroys Randy Savage. Randy Savage has sold more for the Disciple in the past 2 weeks than I think any other wrestler he ever has. So Hogan gets in the ring. Now remember, 5 minutes ago I told you the story was the heels aren't getting along, so the babyfaces are going to kick their ass. Not when Hogan's in there. Hogan starts to destroy Lex Luger and tear him apart. I just threw my hands up. What the hell? He beats him and beats him and beats him. Finally, he misses a leg drop. Lex doesn't even do anything to cut him off. Hogan screws up himself. Sting tags in. By the way, Sting his title belt never appeared on TV again. I need to go back and check how many weeks. Now, granted, he came out of a helicopter, so there's an excuse this week. But he's been without the belt more often than not since winning it. A brawl breaks out. Luger puts Hogan on the rack. Disciple attacks him for the DQ. A waste of time.
It was hideous. It was such a horrendous main event. And this was a match that set all the records.
Yes.
It's one of those things where you really think about it and everybody gets all hung up on ratings and great ratings, everything like that. Can you imagine that fucking horrible match drawing all of those eyeballs? Like, that's the worst match you could possibly present to that number of people.
Think about this. You had Sting, Macho Man, Hulk Hogan, and Lex Luger in the main event, and you had a bunch of drunken frat boys and half-clothed co-eds in the audience, and there was no noise being made at all because they didn't care.
Well, once you got rid of that helicopter, not sure what there is to care about.
I guess not.
That's the show, everybody. Man, it's all downhill. It's all downhill for WCW, but it's all uphill for WWF after this show. It turned a corner this week again. All because of Vince McMahon for the second week in a row. Vince McMahon saves the show.
2 weeks till WrestleMania 14, I think it is.
Yep, March 30th or whatever. So that's it for today, everybody. We'll be back on Thursday with more. Make sure, if you want to get some songs in, I'm trying to play some on every show, so send them to Brian@WrestlingObserver.com. Put song in the subject line, and we'll play them. And that is it from here. We'll talk to you again after a while.
Good night.
Bye.
All right, let's do Nitro.
Nitro number 132, also March 23rd. As noted, we were all bewildered and confused when Roddy Piper came out for a promo to open the show.
God, this guy.
Completely unannounced. There he is.
He's still, I guess, the commissioner or whatever the hell he was, because he makes a rule.
Was he?
Yeah, was he? Does anyone know what the hell the deal is with Roddy
Because-
Piper? I thought he got fired or something.
He was making matches. Later on, Hogan was taking people out of matches and making things a handicap match. I don't know who's in charge.
Well, they did explain.
That is the story on and off camera of this
I can
company.
explain some of this. Piper was a commissioner a while ago, but the NWO won a match at Fall Brawl, which gave them...
In 1996. Point that out.
Which gave them nebulous abilities to sometimes change matches.
You're such a worker.
No, that's what the storyline is.
They explained this.
fucking said that during this show. They didn't say nebulous, but...
It's a shame. It's a great word. So, Piper makes a rule. His rule is, no more on this professional wrestling show will there be any baseball bats. Gene says, that's great news. The fans all say, boo! I was so confused at this point. Then Piper says there's no bats until April 19th. Why? Because there's going to be a bat on a pole match between himself and Giant versus Nash and Hogan.
A fucking bat match.
So they're doing a bat match.
Start making your songs. Start making your songs now. Start making them now, kids.
And this is
Bat
not
match.
an Adam West reference. They're doing a bat match, and Sting is not even in it.
Yeah.
What?
Not to mention, by the time the show was over, I'd seen 2 bats.
Yes. No one enforced Piper's no bat rule. So Piper talks about Savage. Says last time he was here, he was handcuffed to a cage, and Savage was beating him, and he's going to fight Savage tonight.
He made gay jokes about Hogan and Savage.
Yeah.
Wasn't so much. Well, I guess technically, but
Yeah, he did.
It wasn't like a homophobic joke. He just asked, "Are you ex-lovers?"
Yeah.
Is that not a gay thing?
Well, I'll explain why. It's more making fun of why they're so angry
Is
at
that
each
a
other.
gay thing or a college?
Well, it's an extraordinarily gay thing.
I see.
But it's not anti-gay. There's nothing wrong with being ex-lovers if you do, but to explain why they're fighting so much.
I see.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure if he would have asked if the homophobic ex-lovers, that is a gay thing. It sounds about right.
Yeah.
So.
Chavo Guerrero versus Ultimo Dragon. He crammed a good 8-minute match into 3 minutes. Dragon
2
will-
minutes. You gave it too much credit.
Makes my point even more.
2 minutes and 11 seconds, by the way.
Well, I was generous and
2
rounded
minutes,
up.
9 seconds. I'm all about the facts
We're
here on this
very
show.
pedantic now. The point is, Dragon won a short match with a Dragon Sleeper. It was fun. Then it got better. Gene goes to interview Chavo and Eddie. Eddie's very disappointed in Chavo. Chavo has let down the entire family. Eddie turns to the camera, apologizes to all his brothers, then apologizes to his mom, and turns to Chavo and orders him, apologize to Grandma! Chavo didn't want to, but he's a man of his word, and he said he would do whatever Eddie said if he lost this match. So Chavo turns to the camera and says, Grandma, I'm sorry. And Eddie said, you said you would do whatever I told you, and I told you to win, and you lost! I'm going to show you how it's done later. I'm facing a Japanese wrestler, probably not as good as the one who beat you, or probably better than the one who beat you. I got it backwards. Probably better than the one who beat you. I'm going to show you how it's done. He left. This was awesome.
This is a great storyline, especially because it continues later in the show. We find out who the superior Japanese wrestler to Ultimo Guerrero is.
The way he said this, I was expecting Inoki.
You're supposed to.
Yeah. Hogan and Bischoff came out for a promo. A text on the back of Hogan's shirt, which he's been wearing for a while, but I didn't really read it until now. Yea, thou, I wrestle, that's what it said, in the Colosseums and arenas of champions. I fear no one because I know I am the man. If it wasn't for that
I'll bet they
grammar
sold a
error
ton of those
in the
shirts.
second word, that shirt is awesome. So I was sitting there thinking how bored I am with Hulk Hogan promos when Larry said, I'm already bored. I can only imagine how many people turn the channel to Raw at this point. So
Yeah,
Hogan,
to see those geeks on the stage with blow-up dolls.
and turned right back. So Hogan runs down.
In this there's a point in this promo quickly that Hogan says that Nash and I have the same blood running through our veins, and I'm thinking to myself, going, Is that the reason why you have all the baby oil coming out of your pores? That's the only thing I could focus on when he was talking was how shiny this large man was. It was
he's incredibly.
He was very shiny.
Glimmering.
Remember that show where he was so oiled up that people thought he was lactating?
Yes. This happened.
That's a lot of oil.
Yeah. So he had nothing to say. He ran down Piper and the Giant for a while, and it occurred to me at this point that if you count Randy Savage, who's kind of got a foot in both sides, but if you count Randy Savage, then Sting is now 4th on the babyface totem pole behind Piper, Giant, and Savage. There's more on this to come later in the show. Scott Steiner versus Wayne Bloom. First of all...
What a battle.
First of all, I still remember the comment last week. Someone mentioned Bloom's deadlifts, and Larry said with those legs.
Yeah, with those legs.
And I really looked at his legs. Are these the skinniest calves in proportion to the rest of his body you've ever
Very
seen
small.
on a man?
Very small.
Are they any wider than his ankles at all?
Absolutely not.
So Scott beat the hell out of him.
Well, maybe his thighs are so huge it makes his
I hadn't
calves
thought of that possibility.
look skinny.
Although that would
That's
not
why
explain
you're
why his
such a-
ankles are as skinny as his calves.
Good deadlifter. The deadlift isn't in your calves.
That's true.
Yeah. It's not, Craig.
I understand.
I
Brian.
say this, by the way, as a man who once purchased wrestling boots from Stagecoach, and I took my measurements and sent them in. They took the time to call me and double-check that my calves really were that skinny. And I sheepishly said, yes, ma'am. So, Scott killed him. One with the middle rope Samoan drop and the Steiner recliner.
I got nothing to add.
Yeah.
Ryan? Moving on.
was absolutely horrible in this match.
Which one?
The suplexes in general, just the way that he was just dropping them on his head on a few of them. The ring looked really, really stiff. I don't know if the WCW ring was different than the WWE ring, but it sure just looked like it hurt a few times and he got dropped on his head.
Well, when you have a madman dropping you on your head, I'm sure it looks bad no matter what.
There's no good answer to this.
Good point.
Lodi versus Psychosis. I cannot believe Psychosis trusted Lodi to catch him on a corkscrew dive to the floor.
Thank you. That's the only note I made.
Well, we got to talk about this. This is the beginning. Actually, it's probably not the beginning, but back in the day, you did a dive and your opponent caught you because you would do a dive and they would catch you. Then it later became you would just fucking fly in the air and land on the guy and hope that nobody died. That's what happened here. Psychosis just did a dive and landed right on Lodi's leg and broke the poor dude's ankle.
Did you really?
Yep, broke his ankle on
that
this
explains-
dive. Lodi didn't even try to catch him. He just broke his fall
With
and
his
broke
foot.
his
With his
ankle.
ankle.
It was brutal.
So he should have just gotten more out of the way. Well, that explains what happened next, because Psychosis threw him into the ring, hit a gourd buster and the Tijuana Jam for the win. There you go.
Was this Lodi's first ever actual match on Nitro?
I think he had one.
He
I
may
want
have had
to
one
say
other.
he did,
Yeah.
but I can't prove it.
Man, oh man, what a career.
DDP versus Sting.
This was
He's
great.
not Kwee-wee, by the way.
Yeah, we.
That was Vinny. That wasn't me.
Cleared that up on the board.
I'm happy that we. I'm happy actually that we corrected that. I don't mind being corrected when I'm wrong.
No.
Why would you?
DDP versus Sting.
This
had a
match was awesome.
Really awesome TV match.
This was better than The Rock and Steve Austin.
It was.
You know what? It had really good heat for a babyface versus babyface.
Yeah.
But then Tony Schiavone actually oversold it by saying, these fans are standing on the edge of their chairs, and I'm looking at the TV, and I'm looking at the fans, and they're sitting there politely.
Well, Schiavone, we've hit the era. In fact, it's been a few weeks now where he's overhyping everything. Everything is the biggest match of all time.
Right.
Everything's the biggest crowd of all time. So yes, he's overshilling everything now.
Like I said, the heat was good, the crowd was good, but he just oversold it. Didn't need to.
Now, the way this was pushed throughout the show up to this point, you could argue that Paige is also on the list of babyfaces higher than Sting on the totem pole. You were not tuning in if you watch these men talk. They didn't tell you tune in to see Sting defend the world title. They said tune in to watch Paige challenge for it. So they had a very good match. They teased finishers early. The fans believed the match could end at any time. Went, 12, 15 minutes. They built throughout. Intensity throughout, even though it was two babyfaces. And finally, Paige goes for the cutter out of the corner, but Sting grabs the ropes to block. And that leaves Sting in perfect position to grab Paige by the head, hit the reverse DDT for the win.
And then the fans lost their ever-loving minds.
Oh, yes.
It was awesome.
It was great.
I'm I'm really confused, though, guys. Like, there weren't 50 kickouts, so how is this a title match? One finisher and that's it, really?
It is funny you mentioned that, because when he hit that move and went for the cover, you see, we all have two halves of our brain. Are you aware of that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I'm watching it, and one half of my brain thought, well, obviously he's going to kick out.
Obviously.
But then the other half of my brain remembered it was 98, and I didn't expect him to kick out, and he didn't.
And then you were surprised.
I was kind of surprised.
Because I was too.
I was like, man, he hit a finisher and won. That's baffling. Now, here's another thing. I know people have said this a million times over the years, but it bears repeating with this match. When Diamond Dallas Page, he would always send scripts to his opponents for his matches. And there were a lot of people that thought, this damn Diamond Dallas Page doesn't know how to work. He can't call it in the ring. He's got to script out his matches. This is a great example of who the fuck cares how you put this goddamn match together.
It's true.
This was the best match Sting had since... when?
96.
Like the last time
Since
he had
Bash of the Beach.
Yeah, probably. This match was awesome. And if you recall, like in a year or so, Sting has another match with DDP where I think DDP beat Sting for the title. That's like an awesome match. And then they rematch later in the show, and I think DDP wins it back or something like that. But, man, DDP got such a great match out of Sting. And Sting had not been having good matches lately.
Nope. So Sting helps Page up to his feet, salutes him with a diamond cutter sign. All is right with the world. We got some very embarrassing Nitro Party clips. Guys wearing masks and doing themed menus and these Nitro parties. When I was a kid, they seemed like what me and my friends were doing, and I look back now and I think, I pray to God my friends were not doing this. They probably were.
Vinny's not mentioning he's wearing a mask right now as he does the show.
I always wear a mask on the show.
He's the gimp this week.
Well, it is in fact a mask to hide my identity because I am so embarrassed. Craig, how dare you?
What?
Nothing. Lex Luger versus Rick Fuller.
Rick Fuller.
Haven't we had this conversation about Fuller before?
Yeah, he's alive.
He's huge. He's not bad. In fact, he may have been better than Lex in this match.
That's fair.
Why?
Sorry.
Brian mutes everyone when he coughs. How did Rick Fuller never get more opportunities than he had?
I don't know.
I don't know if he didn't even any good as a legit star, but all we ever see him as a TV jobber.
Maybe he was terrible and Luger carried him to a very good match.
I hadn't thought of that.
No. It didn't happen.
Well, no. So, he's huge. He's beaten Lex up the entire time. Actually, it occurred to me here, you know who Rick Fuller is? He's Braun Strowman's dad. They have a lot in common.
Kinda,
Okay.
yeah.
I was thinking he would
Way
fit
better.
In. I was
The one
thinking
thing
he
that
would
they're
fit in well
selling
with.
through this entire match is that Rick Fuller is 400 pounds. And he's a big guy. Now, just a little background. I'm 6'8" and about 315, and
Jesus.
I'm looking at Rick Fuller going, that guy's not 400 pounds because he's just amazingly agile for a guy that size. I mean, I'm a big guy, but watching this guy going, what he was doing and all the movesets and things like that, he was fantastic. I mean, as much as he was only in there for a couple of minutes, but for a big guy, it was pretty impressive.
May I clear up the fact that you just said you are 6'8"?
Yeah, 6'8". Vinny and Craig officially would be the smaller of the two men in the room. I would be the biggest guy in the room, yes.
I'll fly you up here.
I'm 6'2", you're 6'3", Vinny?
Are you taller than me?
Maybe, am I?
I think you're taller than me.
Oh,
I think I'm
okay.
about 6'1" these days.
Never mind.
6'8".
Yeah, he's big.
Yeah.
He's 14 inches taller than me.
That's
Yeah,
all.
Dude.
I'd have guessed more without doing the math.
Actually, he's 6'8". He's 13 inches taller.
That's the difference between me and my wife, by the way.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
God, put the three of you together?
How
Right?
are you? How are you
No.
at the buffets?
It'd be... I just had to think about that. That doesn't work.
I don't know what's happening.
That to me...
I think this just got uncomfortable.
Don't ask me to think about numbers.
Yeah.
All right, where
I
were
never
we?
will. So anyway,
Actually, yeah, Ryan, how are you at the buffets?
I'm not a huge fan. I try to keep it down as much as I possibly can. I'm trying to get down under $3 bills because I keep on hearing you and Vinny have the weight conversation. So I'm thinking to myself, going, okay, I gotta stick to it. Try to do my best.
Well, the
if
difference
if
is...
you're not on TV as a wrestler, you can be as fat as you want.
Well, it's not that. It's like Vinny's only 6'2". So you are 6 inches taller than Vinny.
Yeah.
And he may weigh
That's
315
true.
right now.
I'm not on TV, but I could have been a jobber back in the 80s because anybody with any type of body could have been on those programs for sure.
Dude, at 6'8" and 315 pounds, you would have been a megastar.
A Black Bart at the very least.
Yeah.
So Fuller takes the whole match. Then Lex hits a couple of clotheslines, hits the bionic elbow. He signals for the rack. The place goes absolutely insane. And then, with ease, he gets this big fucker up in the torture rack, and everyone just loses their minds, and Lex wins.
I don't know if I would
ease.
say ease.
Yeah.
He had a rough time getting this guy up.
Really?
He got him
Yeah.
up on the right when he was lifting him up initially, but when his weight transferred over, there was a little scary moment there where I thought he was going to dump him on his head.
See, there was a delay. Yes, you're right. It took him a few seconds to get his left arm over the man's head, but I didn't see any wobble in there. I think he could have held that guy up for a long time. Just with the one arm. It's actually more impressive that way.
It's true.
Yeah, there was a part there where Rick Fuller grabbed Lex underneath his chin and tried to position himself so he wouldn't fall flat on his head. So
You're going with me
it was
if I
pretty
go over.
scary for a minute there, especially with a guy that size.
Dude, I can't get over that. Ryan's 6'8".
Did you not know people got that big?
No, I didn't. I've never met someone 6'8".
What?
I don't think so.
It's the Canadian water, Brian. I'm just north of you in Vancouver, so.
Well, that didn't do me a damn bit of good.
Water.
How tall was Avalanche?
He ain't 6'8". He's probably 6'4", 6'5".
Okay.
He's 6'4".
Dude, 4 inches taller than the Avalanche?
Yeah.
I miss the old
I need to hire
Avalanche.
this guy. He's got size. Need that for a podcast.
Yeah.
It's very important for
Yeah.
good audio.
It's a wrestling podcast. It's got to have size.
It's just what we need in here. More heat.
I just had this vision of Brian on a ladder for hours adjusting a microphone to the right height.
I'm trying to imagine if Ryan were sitting in that chair right there and Whitney came in and just took a photo of the four of us.
It would look like those Russian nesting dolls.
It would.
It looked like 3 men and a baby.
Hey. Can we continue?
Can I be Tom Selleck?
Sure.
Okay. He was in that, right?
Let's talk about Eddie Guerrero and Kaz Hayashi.
Eddie Guerrero wrestled not Antonio Inoki. It was Kaz Hayashi.
Let me start.
Ultimo Guerrero's young boy.
Let me start. Chavo comes out wearing my favorite wrestler is Eddie Guerrero. Eddie summons him up onto the apron to hold the ropes for him. Chavo sits on the second rope and holds the top rope open. Eddie gets up on the apron and then vaults over the top rope.
Because Eddie was awesome.
I died.
Eddie is the best.
Let me tell you how great Eddie is. There's a spot in this match that Mike Tenay had never seen before. I don't recall ever seeing this before, even though I probably saw it live. Fucking Kazuyashi's on the top rope. And I guess he was trying a drop kick.
Yes.
And he leaps in the air, and he throws his legs out, and Eddie Guerrero responds by dropping to a knee, and Hayashi falls from high in the air and lands on his knee. He didn't catch him and give him a backbreaker.
No.
He just kneeled and left his knee there for the man to fly onto. That was the craziest thing I've ever seen in my life.
There's also another spot where Kaz came off the top rope with a moonsault, and Eddie timed it perfectly to drop kick him as he was in rotation.
That's right. And then Kazuyashi did a big dive to the outside, and they all nearly killed themselves. They smashed into the barricade in a very uncomfortable manner.
Who was the guy in ROH who unfortunately just suffered a broken leg?
TK O'Ryan.
Yeah, TK O'Ryan.
It's exactly what happened. He flew through the air, crashed both legs in the barricade, and I screamed.
Well, he didn't break it. He didn't break his fibia and his tibia. That's both of them.
That sucks.
Yeah, it sucks bad.
So Eddie destroyed this guy for a while, and finally finished him off with a superplex and a frog splash.
I loved it.
So Ultimo Dragon comes out to check on Kaz, and he enters the ring, and Eddie is between him and Kaz. So Dragon just walks forward. Eddie not only doesn't get out of the way, but he shoulder checks Dragon as Dragon passes by. Dragon ignores this. He's a more important fish to fry. But Eddie is still pissed off, so he takes his wrath out on Chavo for not making Dragon walk around him. And he slaps Chavo, orders him to hold the ropes open so he leaves the ring. Had a Bret Hart video package. Yet another guy you could argue higher on the totem pole than Sting.
These vignettes that WCW puts on are so junior high compared to WWF.
Yes. There was like one good one, and I forget what it was now. But yeah, the WCW video packages, and I say it every time, they're owned by Turner Broadcasting.
Right.
You have a multi-billion-dollar media conglomerate, and this is the best you can do. It was not very good.
Speaking of not very good,
We had Conan video package, which was not very good, and then we had a Conan match that was not very good.
this is the worst match I ever saw. This was
Excuse me?
horrendous.
This was a pretty
Are
bad
you
match,
granny
but
now?
This was horrible, Vinny.
I'm not
He's
defending
going to
it.
give it a 1.
It's very, very boring. They clarified Piper's ruling earlier, where he said bats would be illegal until April 19th. Shouldn't they be illegal all the time?
On 420, though, game on.
I guess so. So Conan beat him up forever, used a very wacky lucha submission. It was very boring. And finally, Conan tries the cradle DDT, but Ayakea hits a Northern Light suplex for the win, and I think literally the only offense he got in the entire match. Craig, would you like to see more?
This sucked.
Ryan, was this the worst match you've ever seen in your life?
This is, it was pretty terrible.
That's two people
one
that thought
thing
it was the
noticed
worst.
Conan looked absolutely monstrous compared to Prince Ayakea. Is Prince Ayakea that small? Because
Yes.
the size discrepancy was massive, it seemed, but it was pretty terrible. I didn't understand. You get the crap kicked out of him the whole match and Northern Light suplex, and that's it. Oh, okay, I guess.
You need to go back and watch Ayakea versus Regal. Ayakea looks like a
dude.
Smurf. Chris Jericho came out for a promo. He
That was me.
cheered on the local sports ball team's upcoming rival. And then Lenny Lane interrupted.
It's like a mirror.
Man, it's a famous interview right
It's one of those just random throwaway lines that takes on a life of its own, and everyone knows the joke 20 years later. So apparently at the pay-per-view, they had done a scam where Lenny had disguised himself as Jericho to fool Dean Malenko and save the title.
Right.
So Lenny says, Chris Jericho, I helped you screw Dean Malenko. You owe me $1,000. Jericho says, I don't know what you're talking about. You're the one who went through my bag. You stole my gear, and you stole my Loverboy tape. And it's one of those things you're watching and think, haha, that's funny. And you move on, but it lives forever. It's like one of the most famous things Jericho ever did with this Loverboy tape line.
Just see Lenny Lane cruising in his car listening to Everybody's Working for the Weekend.
You want to be in the show? Da-na-na-na-na-na. So Jericho says
I hate you guys.
Lenny owes him $1,000 for ruining his gear. He demands it right now. And it's one of those things, the only people who are still active 20 years later are Jericho, Big Show, and Kane's still around on SmackDown, isn't he?
Occasionally,
I have not seen him
sometimes.
much. But you watch Jericho in 1998 when he says, Lenny Lane, you owe me $1,000, and I demand it. And you expect him to go, it! He didn't do it. I was wondering what was wrong with him. So Lenny slaps him, and they had a match.
Now, the big line was, I want you to give it to me. And Lenny says, you want me to give it to you? And Jericho's screaming, give it to me! And so he slaps him. You could see it coming a mile away, but it was awesome.
So Lenny Lane, a horrible wrestler, for the record, does the skull-crushing finale better than Miz. They had a fun 2-minute match, and Jericho won with a Boston Crab. Hulk Hogan and Kevin Nash versus Giant.
This stupid thing. This is where they explain that the NWO has turned this singles match into a handicap match as a result of a win they had at Fall Brawl 1996.
Okay, was it originally a singles match or a tag?
No, it was originally a battle of giants. It was supposed to be Giant versus Nash,
And they added Hogan.
right?
I don't know. That's what I'm asking.
I thought it was. I could have sworn it was a singles match.
I thought it was originally a tag match, and they turned to a singles. And again, I'd love to be corrected if I'm wrong. It doesn't really matter. It was what it was. So,
And Vinny, just really quickly before you get going on that missed match with the referee. The referee is the size of my right leg in this match, and it scared the hell out of me watching this tiny little guy try and get between these massive giants, going, "Please don't squish him. He's going to die. Please don't hurt him."
Well, you know, and back in the day, the idea was you got to get a small referee so the wrestlers looked bigger. So it was always weird years later when John McCarthy would referee these fights between 125-pound men. And I was like, you fuckers don't know how to book this shit. You have this giant referee in there with these tiny men.
For the record, I looked at my notes, and it was supposed to be Giant versus Nash.
See?
Thank you. You're correcting me. I appreciate
Turned
that.
it into a handicap match because of that fall brawl win.
But there is a reason that Bill Alfonso always reffed Giant Gonzalez's matches. There's actually many reasons, but one of them is he's short. All right, so they're doing this match, and it's Hogan versus Giant for 5 minutes, and it's every Hogan Giant thing you ever saw.
No, it's worse. This was so horrible. Hulk Hogan versus the Giant. It was a new level of horrible. This was a 1. This was worse than Conan and Ikea, Craig. When the Giant and Hulk Hogan were in together, fucking horrible.
What did you think of the 1 minute Nash and Giant were in the ring?
Better!
See, okay, I'm happy you
I
said
couldn't
that.
believe my eyes.
We have a large man on the phone, and so I say this as a compliment to you. It's just cool watching Giants fight.
It's true.
It is!
And sometimes Nash gets in there, and you can't call what he does fighting, but Nash gave it his all for the 60 seconds he was in there. And just watching these big Kong and Godzilla wail on each other and run across the ring and slam into each other, it's just cool.
Dude, when you have guys, like big guys that are bad, and then you have little guys like Eddie Guerrero, Chris Benoit, Dean Malenko, all of these guys, then you're begging to see the little guys. You're bored with the big guys. But all things being equal, fans love to see giant dudes going at it. To this day. Why the hell do you think Goldberg and Brock Lesnar is at WrestleMania this year and people aren't booing Goldberg yet?
Yeah, the talent level, like these days, with the big guys, the Strowmans and the Roman Reigns, and these guys, like, far outweigh anything that you've seen in '98. Because this match is just horrendous.
This match was
I was
hideous.
checking to make sure the network wasn't buffering; it was going so slow. So.
Yeah, think about this. You had, like, Eddie Guerrero on this show, and Chris Benoit on this show, and Booker T, and
Ultimo Dragon.
You compare that to these giants. But now let's fast forward to 2017, where all of the big guys, I mean, even Strowman's getting decent. Like, the big guys are good, and you look at the cruiserweights, and they tell the cruiserweights to stop doing all of their good shit and wrestle like heavyweights. So, of course, people are going to rather see the big guys.
So, Giant runs wild on them. He's about to kill them all, and Disciple attacks the DQ.
This guy.
He goes for the stunner, and he grabs... This is awesome. He grabs Giant's head, and he sticks both legs straight out in front of him, and Giant just doesn't go down, so Beefcake's hanging in the air. That was awesome. I will not hear you denigrate that spot.
No, I won't. That was great. That was the best thing Brutus Beefcake did in his whole career.
So, Bischoff kicks Giant in the back, and Giant chokeslams him, and the NWO runs for their lives, and that's that. I didn't hate this nearly as much as Brian did. Or Ryan, for that matter.
I didn't hate it. I just thought it was fucking terrible.
Oh, that's totally different.
It is different.
Watching Bischoff bounce his head off the mat after getting chokeslammed was... I had to rewind it a second time. Man, he didn't tuck his chin very good because his head just bounced off the mat like a basketball.
Dude, it's
kind of scary.
It's not only that. I'm glad you mentioned that. So, as everybody's well aware, the apron's the hardest part of the ring.
Absolutely.
Eric Bischoff is not a trained wrestler.
That was
the
clear.
Giant had to chokeslam Eric Bischoff. You're telling me the Giant didn't know to deposit this guy in the middle of the ring? He lifted this guy up, and he took a giant leap, and he threw him, so he landed right on the fucking apron. I was like, I don't know what Bischoff did to piss off the Big Show this week, but
Glad
he
he
did
did.
something. Giant got a receipt.
And I hear that Eric's inducting
DDP.
DDP.
Yeah.
It's funny because he had a question about
We did.
Eric in the
Will
Hall
he
of
ever
Fame.
be in the Hall of Fame? Of course he will
and
someday.
Dave lost his ever-loving mind about
Well,
it.
it's a stupid question. Vinny will be in the Hall of Fame someday.
All right.
Who will induct me?
Brian.
I'll do it.
Cool. Thanks, Ryan.
Stoney Edwards.
That deal. I agree. Chris Benoit versus Booker T. Tony Schiavone is trying to explain that Chris Benoit is a no-nonsense wrestler.
Yeah.
The exact words he used were, "This man does not wear a flowery jacket." And suddenly, I really bad wanted to see Chris Benoit in a flowery jacket. So this was not, by a long shot, the best of the Booker T. Chris Benoit matches. God, it was good.
It's very good. It's very good, this 7-minute, 10-minute draw.
5:38.
Yes. Is that all it was?
Yeah.
They can't do anything right, this company.
7:35 with commercials.
Fine.
Yeah.
So
The clock keeps running when that commercial comes on,
I
you
understand,
jackass.
Brian.
So they're doing this great match, and Benoit takes the biggest flapjack of all time, and they're trading strikes, and it's great, and the bell rings at random, and I immediately knew, oh, it's a time limit draw. I didn't know how much time had elapsed. I didn't know what the time limit was, but when the bell rings for no reason, I can assume it's a time limit draw.
Wait, did you say 5:38?
Yeah, I was looking at
That's
the wrong
the next
thing.
match.
7:34.
Thank you.
I apologize.
The announcers had no idea what might have happened. Why is the match over? Why did the bell ring?
I was thinking the same thing. You never see this. You
Well,
never see this. And
so-
it's a great finish.
Yeah. So Booker took his belt, celebrated like he had won, and you think about it, he had. Kurt Hennig versus Davey Boy Smith.
Poor Davey boy.
Dude, who wants to talk about Davey Boy? Let's talk about ravishing Rick Rude.
I was going to say this is
Okay.
the best opponent Davey Boy's had since getting in this company.
That's
well,
what
it
I'm saying.
was, but Rick Rude. First off, Rick Rude's doing commentary, and Bobby's gushing all over him. Is quite the bromance before such a term existed. And Rude goes down. Rick Rude is just my favorite wrestler. Like,
And he's not even wrestling.
that one NWO Nitro where he was doing commentary, like, you go back and read The Observer, and Dave thought Rude was just terrible on commentary. And it's like, boy, does that tell you how commentary has fallen in the last 19 years. This guy was great! And what a badass.
So much I loved about this match. You had, before the match began, Hennig tried to intimidate Davey Boy by flexing a bicep. And Davey Boy responded by squinting and holding his hand over his eyes, trying to see this tiny little arm off in the distance. You had Rude claiming that not only were he and Kurt Hennig lifelong friends, but in fact their fathers were dear friends, Larry Hennig and Dick Rude.
That's
Dick
true.
Rude.
That's awesome.
Everything about that is true.
Then Davey Boy used a cartwheel to avoid a move, and Rude scolded him and said, if you want to do that, go join the circus. Rude was the best here.
He was so awesome.
So as soon as things start to go Davey Boy's way, Rude makes his way down to ringside. Davey Boy tries the power slam. He hurts
death.
Kurt Hennig up on top of his shoulders. And Rude grabs Davey Boy's leg to block it. But Davey, with Kurt Hennig on his shoulders, raises his other leg, stomps on Rude's arm, and hits the power slam anyway. That was awesome. Then he goes after Rude. Rude handcuffs him to the ropes. It's a DQ, which should be. And they start beating him up forever until Brett runs out to make the save. On the list of reasons to love Rick Rude, ain't no one before, ain't nobody since sold an atomic drop any better.
oh, I don't know.
That's pretty good, though.
We were just talking about that one on the...
This is better than Bill Tab. I promise
know.
you.
He popped up. He buckled his knees together.
He buckles his knees together. He arches his back. He holds his arms like chicken wings and has the most pained expression on his face.
So you're telling it's like somebody walked up behind you and jammed something up your ass, Vinny?
Wow.
Is that what you're saying?
Again, Brian has made the show uncomfortable. Craig is looking at me in deep distress.
How red he is.
Anyway,
Hold on.
Vinny's purple right now.
How can you... Where is your gauge? How did you come up with this?
Well, I'm just saying the most uncomfortable thing that could happen that would make you do that.
I see.
Yeah.
So
Yes?
so to know this pain,
Well, I don't know this pain. I'm imagining it.
I see.
Hello. Never mind.
every once in a while,
Killed Vince.
Brian will do a callback to a show Craig was not on, and Craig has no idea what's going on. And this is one of them. Yes, this is now 2 shows in a row, Craig, where Brian has brought up the subject of things being jammed in your ass unaware.
Huh? That's rape.
So, Brett puts Hennig in the sharpshooter. B team runs out to attack him. Brett fights them all off by himself, just with a punch. Just that one right hand, he knocks them all out. And they unlock Davey Boy from the handcuffs. And Brett cuts a promo, says, I'm tired of seeing people get screwed. As long as I'm in the building, nobody's going to go through what I did. They showed a clip from Thunder, where the NWO was attacking Rick Steiner until Goldberg made the save, spearing the snot out of everybody. And it was the first time, really, that Goldberg has been on TV and doing well for a while, but the first time he's really stuck his nose in anyone's business. Otherwise, he just kept to himself.
You know, it's already March, and Thunder is now like 3 months old. And if you recall, when Thunder first debuted, the following Monday, like half the show was recaps of what happened on Thunder. Now you may get one clip. It's already like
Off the radar.
a D show.
Renegade versus Goldberg.
Poor Renegade.
Have I mentioned that Renegade was using Mark Miller's music?
You always mention that, and I never noticed.
I always forget that I've mentioned it before. So,
Did you notice what Renegade was wearing? His trunks and the inappropriate tassels that were attached to adorn his front and back. It was just something you'd see in like a biker rally or something.
his trunks
Some
did
S&M
seem...
club somewhere. I'm going.
His trunks were a little small, and he covered them with fringe, including metal fringe. So when Goldberg speared him, Goldberg tore his own face open.
Is that what it was?
That's what happened.
Yes.
I was wondering, what
That's
the
what
hell
it
is the metal on this guy's trousers for?
I thought he busted open his eye when they locked up or when Goldberg was throwing the headbutt.
I am pretty sure it was the spear, because it happened right before the finish, and it was the spear and jackhammer finish, spoiler, and Goldberg pops up and suddenly his face is just covered in blood.
They also went out of their way to make sure that you noticed that Goldberg is 59-0.
No, he's 60-0 after this
After
match.
the match.
60-0 after
That's
the
right.
match. I
I
apologize.
believe that's the first time they put a number on it.
Right.
Randy Savage versus Roddy Piper. The following comment I'm about to make, you could probably make it about just about any Nitro or Raw in this era, but it really hit me like a hammer just how many people on the show are no longer with us.
Oh, yeah.
I counted 10.
Oh!
And we have 3 in this match alone, Piper, Savage, and Liz. So they're brawling everywhere. Piper goes for a pile driver on the cement. Liz breaks it up by raking his back. And we had just talked about Ronnie Garvin raking the back on Sunday. Liz took 4 sharp fingernails, dug into Piper's flesh like she was trying to climb a mountain, and just raked his back off.
Dude, she goes up behind this guy, and she does the back rake, and like immediately you see 8 lines down the guy's back.
Yes.
And I thought, okay, maybe the guy just got done tanning. He's a little burned, and that's just like, you know, when you rake, when you like, if you got a burn and you push on it and you move your finger, it's gonna be white. So I thought maybe that's what it is. No, it was there for the rest of the match. She back raked Roddy Piper.
Yeah.
And she rakes his back and runs off, and Roddy dead stop. Like, he just stops, and then he just starts to turn around like, what in the fuck did you just do to me? I couldn't believe my eyes.
Spot though that they would have. This is a spot they would have planned, right? I mean, this is something that she wouldn't have just hauled off and done.
Well,
because,
I think
I looked at it and went, that just looks so freaking horrible when she did it. It just looked painful beyond belief. But I'm guessing he knew it was coming.
Well, I mean, I'm sure he knew they were going to do like a fake back rake.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he was expecting her to really rake his back with her fingernails.
So
And if he did, he's out of his mind.
he responded by
Well-
forcibly kissing her. He is out of his mind, yes. Match goes on for a while. Liz gets knocked off the apron. The ref starts to check her. The ref stops to check on Liz. Piper and Savage do a double down. Hogan comes out, takes out the ref, and Hogan and Nash get in the ring with a baseball bat. Nash has the bat. Hogan says, "Hey Kev, use that baseball bat and hit Randy Savage." Nash says, "I'll hit Roddy Piper instead." Hogan is outraged. He yanks the bat out of Nash's hands, and they begin to bicker. Sting shows up with a bat, and they both back away. Savage jumps Sting from behind. There's insanity everywhere. Eventually, Giant comes out. He takes all the bats away. The NWO runs for their lives. Savage is still trying to get at the NWO dudes. And usually, to this day, in fact, but especially in the Monday Night Wars era, they always end with chaos and confusion. The stuff going on as the show ends. This time, everything ended. They had like a minute to show replays. The announcers reflected on this. They thanked us for joining and said, "We'll see you next week," which was nice.
Yeah, it was
was
a nice
better.
change of pace.
It was much better.
There were an awful lot of bats in this match right here on a show where bats were banned by Roddy Piper, who was in the match with all the bats. Can't believe this.
That happened. A pair of things. Anyway, Nitro. Open with
What was
the...
that match we saw in NWA? Was Wendy Richter there?
Yeah. Oh, and, for the AWA show? Or
No, it was the NWA show. where
Misty Blue.
Misty Blue and
Linda Dallas.
That's
I
right.
actually went back and watched that based on your guys' recommendation.
Oh, my
So-
God. Were we wrong?
No, it was everything everything you described it to be, and clearly someone from the control room called down and said, let's get this off the TV, like ASAP.
So, Nitro opened with a clip from Thunder where Kevin Nash confronted Hulk Hogan about the leadership of the NWO. And the Nitro Girls danced. Then they showed more from Thunder, including Nash and Hogan getting into a shoving match. And explained then that Randy Savage had vowed to win the world title at the Spring Stampede. Why? Because it was a stepping stone that would make him the leader of the NWO. And once again, Sting and the world title are just punted second, third, fourth down the card.
Dude, I totally forgot he was the champion.
Yes. When you watch this in hindsight, everyone remembers the Starrcade finish, and that sucked. But it's just the start of a months-long campaign to sabotage the guy. It's amazing to watch in hindsight.
This is why it took Sting forever to get into the Hall of Fame.
It is. It's not his fault. He was given no shot. High Voltage versus Mike Enos and Wayne Bloom.
God damn it. Steve Austin just won the WWF title, and this is the first fucking match they put on Nitro the next day. High Dosage and Mike Enos and Wayne Bloom. Get out of here. Can you believe this, Stanley? Did you not walk out at this point?
First
I was
match,
excited to be there. Full entrances, too. All four guys walking down to the ring with full music and everything.
So the Destruction Crew, or the Beverly Brothers, whatever you want to call them, they did not have the physiques of High Voltage, of course, but they were way bigger. Like, way taller. And they're throwing these dudes around, and it goes about a minute or two, and then the Giant just ambles out, and he chokeslams everyone. It's a double DQ, and Giant cuts a promo saying Roddy Piper had wanted him to get mad, and so he was mad.
Can we talk about Wayne Bloom and how he was supposed to get chokeslammed, and he managed to jump downwards instead of upwards? That was the fucking lamest chokeslam I ever saw in my life because of that guy.
That's a good plan, if you ask me.
When I was a kid, believe it or not, I was actually a fan of the Destruction Crew in the AWA.
Oh my god.
I barely remember them as the Beverly Brothers. Was he always this terrible?
He's fucking terrible.
His body's totally different. He looks awful. He's been awful in every match he's had.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
And those legs.
And he's got the skinniest legs for a big guy you ever saw. Gene Okerlund brings Piper and Giant out for a promo. And they, as we have noted here, they were in Chicago. Piper pays tribute to Harry Carey, who had died just a few weeks prior.
You know what Piper reminds me of? He reminds me of a guy on a message board that thinks he's so clever. And everyone with a brain is thinking, what in the fuck is this guy talking about? But then the other idiots think that he is clever, and they laugh at him. Like, what was Piper talking about in this thing?
What is Piper
He thought he
ever
was
talking
so
about?
funny and so smart, and I'm like, what are you rambling about? And he would say crazy shit, and the audience would cheer, and I'm like, dude, I'm just like, I must be the guy. This promo sucks.
Piper has ADD.
Fixated on Hogan and Nash being lovers. We finally got our E. Harrison Leslie reference.
That's what he
on
called
Nitro.
him. He explained to everyone, the disciple, you may have known him as Brutus Beefcake, or
Zodiac,
or the Butcher, or Zodiac, or the Booty Man. His name is E. Harrison Leslie, Piper says.
And then Gene talks about it. The revelation. His name is E. Harrison Leslie.
It's funny, too, because he didn't call him the Booty Man. He called him the Boogie Man.
I see. I don't know.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. I could have sworn that Roddy said that he was going to wrestle E. Harrison Leslie later. But he ended up wrestling Hogan.
He said Hogan.
Did he say Hogan?
Yeah.
Okay.
It can be hard to tell. Don't feel
Yeah, I could never figure out what he's talking about. Stanley, what did you get out of this?
Very much what you got out of it. Piper's a crazy man. I think they were bringing him in thinking it would boost ratings. He kept bringing these guys out. Pipered, and I think they needed a mouthpiece to get the Giant over, and they picked Piper, and boy, it was something.
Man, the most amazing thing was Giant just standing there and not reacting to anything the guy said. I couldn't believe it.
They showed Nash confronting Hogan again, and here was the line where Nash asked, why does my buddy Six not have a job here anymore? And you want to know why Scott Hall's not on TV anymore? And Hogan said Six-Pack couldn't cut the mustard with the NWO, and I got no idea where Scott Hall is.
Yeah, where the fuck is Scott Hall?
He probably doesn't know.
They admitted they did not trust each other, and they agreed to team later on Thunder to build trust and this led to them getting into a shoving match, so it failed.
This show is so stupid when I really watch it. It's like guys, like huge stars are just gone, and nobody knows where they are.
Right.
What?
And then they just kind of refer to them, too, so the fans think, oh, yes, I like that guy. Where is he? And then he just never shows up.
Yeah, there's so much shit going on that you wouldn't even notice these guys were gone if they didn't keep fucking mentioning it and act like they're like missing persons.
Well, Scott Hall could have staggered off somewhere into the woods, and
you know what, Craig? That's concerning.
I understand.
Like,
that.
what if we did this goddamn show and like Vinny just didn't show up?
I wouldn't show
and
up.
It's
either.
like, where's Vinny? Well, I don't know. Let's just do the fucking show.
I understand, Brian.
He's been missing for a week. It's Vinny.
High expectations.
I'm a little unnerved by how much he's been thinking about this.
No, I just thought about it right now.
Saturn versus Fit Finley.
You should be happy. I thought that would be concerning.
That's true. As opposed to a cause for celebration.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
not like,
good,
oh,
Vinny's not
hey,
here.
no, Vinny, let's get going.
I just drive to Dick's and pull him out of the booth. Nobody.
How dare you?
Oh, even I did make a fat joke.
Saturn versus Fit Finley had one of the best 4-minute matches I ever saw.
This was a slobber knocker.
Oh, this was a mean guy match, and these fuckers were mean.
It was quite good, quite enjoyable.
I'll get the bad news out of the way first. Can Fit Finley get, like, larger gear now that he's changed his body? His fucking tights were so far up his ass.
So, a few notes. Sick Boy in 1998, I believe, debuted the man bun. And Raven was carrying the U.S. belt, but Tony reminded us all that Dallas Page is still the champion. Raven has just stolen the belt. So these motherfuckers just beat the shit out of each other for my amusement for 4 minutes, and I was so happy. It's all simple stuff. Finley was taking the best turnbuckle bumps, just the whips into the turnbuckles. I believe his goal was to snap the ring post in half, and I thought he might succeed at one point. Then he just soccer ball kicked Saturn in the back so hard, and Saturn got up and suplexed him into the air. And finally, Finley missed a corner charge, and Saturn hit the head and arm suplex, hooked the rings of Saturn for the win. This match was fucking awesome. This is everything I want from a pro wrestling match.
Agreed.
We got another one later, too.
Yep.
So Saturn called out Goldberg after the match. Mean Gene shilled the hotline. That was a whole segment.
Yep.
And then Scott Hudson did the road report, which was the first time it occurred to me, hey, Lee Marshall hasn't done a road report in months. Like 6 months.
Gosh, we've missed him.
I guess so. Hudson, unlike Lee, did not pretend to be on the phone. He just said, we have a show in Tampa this week.
And no corny, stupid jokes.
Yes, it was much better. Hogan and Bischoff came out for a promo, surrounded by a bunch of B-teamers. Hogan brought E. Harrison Leslie into the foreground. Said Piper tried to expose this man, but the truth is, he is the disciple. He is the leader of all the people who worship the ground I walk on.
God, gee, Merry Christmas.
Where do you get one of those?
What the fuck? He's the leader of all of the people that worship the ground I walk on.
Yeah. That's what a disciple
God
Yes.
damn, what
He is
a role.
He is the president of the fan club.
Yeah, that's exactly
No, this
it.
is well beyond the president of the fan club. Talks about Piper's sissy little skirt.
Yeah.
These guys are all on and on.
Starts running down Nash, so Nash comes out to defend himself. Hogan says, oh, we didn't mention, one of the other things Piper mentioned in a promo. He booked Sting and Luger versus Nash and a partner of Nash's choosing, but that partner could not be Hulk Hogan. So, Hogan took it one step farther here and said, not only can it not be me, it can't be anyone else. I guess he must have said in the ring. But I think he said in the NWO either. And Nash said, Hogan, there's plenty of guys in the NWO waiting to stick a knife in your back, but don't worry about me, I'll shoot you right between the eyes. Hogan said, look, we got a match at the pay-per-view. We got to watch each other's back that night. We will settle our differences after that. And Nash said, I don't need the NWO. I already have a partner. I'll let you try and figure out who it is. Chris Jericho came out for a promo. Dedicated the match to the memory of Dean Malenko. Because you see, Jericho had beaten Malenko with the lion tamer. And Malenko had quit. And in the process had shamed the Malenko family by being a quitter. And at some point in here, Jericho quoted "Mbop." You had Chris Jericho versus Marty Jannetty. Marty's out there in his black singlet with neon trim, no knee pads, and white boots. Looked like a 1980s TV aerobics host.
It was awesome.
Like he was ready to start body shaping. Jericho quickly beat him with a Boston Crab, and then the most historic moment on this show for sure, Jericho cuts a promo where he explains that Dean Malenko claims to know 1,000 holds. In reality, he only knows about 60. But Jericho...
I counted, Jericho adds.
Yes. Jericho knows 1,004 holds and produces a giant stack of dot matrix printer paper.
A list, if you will.
And now, finally, we have a man here on the program tonight that was there live in the building. Jericho reads 5 moves. They go to commercial. He comes back. He's on move 760 or something. Stanley, did he really read all those moves during the break?
Brian, it's been a long 19 years for me, my friend. I believe he named some moves, and then he did make a jump at some point.
Damn
Unfortunately,
it.
he did not name some 600-plus moves in
Damn
that
it.
commercial break.
Now, he
Cheater.
did something like
Ruined.
this.
I got to rewrite Death of WCW.
He did something like this 2 or 3 months ago on Raw.
Oh, yeah, when he just kept going through the break.
Yeah.
Hey, he does this.
Oh, that's right, yes. Well, it's Jericho. So I actually wrote down the 5 names he mentioned before the break. Hold number 1, arm drag. Hold 2, arm bar.
It's not even alphabetical.
No. Hold 3, the moss-covered 3-handled family cadenza. Hold 4, arm bar. Hold 5, Saskatchewan spinning toe hold. And then hold 6 was also arm bar, and 7 was right-handed punch.
That's not a
And
whole...
Brian and Vinny, you could keep me honest on this. I believe Granny was asked about 1 or 2 of these moves not too long ago, correct?
Oh, that's right, yeah.
Well, didn't Saturn actually take the moss-covered thing and make it his move?
I think that, yeah, one of these
Years later.
became an actual move. Like, we thought it was,
Okay.
it was a contest, is a move real or fake?
Yeah.
And she thought that everybody was fucking with her, but all of the moves were real.
Yes. And that was
Yes.
one of them.
Yes.
God, she was so mad at her followers. She was so mad at them. And then it turned out they were all honest.
For gang.
Her gang.
So
Yeah, she
he's
doesn't have to, she has disciples.
They do, in fact, worship the ground she walks on. So Jericho's still going after the break. They cut his mic. Prince Iaukea comes out. Iaukea says, I was trained by Dean Malenko.
Yeah, pause for a second. Prince Iaukea
Yeah.
cut a promo.
Yeah.
I'm
What?
more
And it
surprised.
wasn't a complete train wreck. Let's give him some credit.
No, he said some words.
Yeah.
I mean,
I understood them.
yeah, they were in English.
I was more stunned he was trained by Dean Malenko.
I thought you said Boris Malenko.
Yeah, maybe he did.
That's even crazier.
Yeah. So he's not going to stand there and let Jericho disrespect... Okay, this actually makes more sense. Because he said, I'm not going to stand here and let you disrespect Malenko's memory. And I thought, is Dean actually dead? What happened?
Right.
But if he was talking about Boris, that makes much more sense. So Jericho takes his list and bails. You get Prince Iaukea versus
He
Glacier.
bails and he says, I still had 200 more. Dave hated that. If you go back and read The Observer, he said it was a train wreck. It was a disaster. And it didn't get over.
Best thing on the show.
It's legendary now.
It is. People can recite it, but from memory 20 years later. So we got Prince Iaukea versus Glacier
When did Glacier turn heel?
right
Who
now.
fucking cares?
Nobody cared about this match. It was not very good. Glacier took the whole thing, and then Iaukea hit him with a Northern Light suplex and won.
The best part of this match is Tony Schiavone is talking about how the Malenko family must be so proud of Prince Iaukea for having such a great career. Glacier just dropped him right on his head. That's exactly how he said it. And then he got beat. It's like, man, I'll bet Boris Malenko is...
Wait, no, if Iaukea won.
Oh, he did. You're right. Ah, fucking
Yeah.
cares.
It doesn't matter. It was not a big win.
So lame.
The one with the Northern Light suplex.
Nitro party clips for me. High school.
You
That's
right?
what I think of this show.
Right, Brian?
Yeah, I'm alive.
El Dandy versus Juventud Guerrera. So they're talking about Hogan and the NWO, and then Larry Zbyszko drops a pearl of wisdom. If you read your history books, he says, everybody who thought they were a ruler of something always wound up getting it from someone they trusted. 3 cheers for the human race.
Wow. He needs to write a book.
Actually, he does.
Actually, he did. Welcome to Larryland.
Oh, there you go.
I got to read it.
So they had a fun lucharific match. Danny took 80% of it, and then he dropped him on his head with a Michinoku driver for the win. He killed Danny with that move.
He spiked him. It was ugly.
Any notes on this show so far? Stanley, from being there live?
Nope. Again, long time ago, but it seemed to move a little quicker when I was there live. I can make
Really?
that one note. Yeah.
Oh.
Chavo Guerrero Jr. versus Kaz Hayashi. He also had a luchador match, although it's Chavo, so there had to be some long, boring chinlocks in there as well. They tried to pop up Rana, and it got fucked up to a humiliating degree. Chavo fell on his ass, but I think it's actually because Kaz was going to land on his head if they tried the move, and so Chavo fell on his ass to save the guy's life. The match went on for a while, and Chavo won with the Tornado DDT. He returned to the ring to help Kaz to his feet, and then he left. Raven came out for a promo.
Finally!
Yep.
This was a great promo by Raven. I was going to make some Bray Wyatt jokes, but then the guy surprised me and cut a great promo.
Right.
Raven addressed complaints.
This is why they signed him. That's what I was thinking during the promo. All the time they've wasted with him of just not showing up for some weeks, just hanging out at ringside. This promo is why they signed him.
He made his money here.
Yep.
He said, for 8 months, people have been complaining that I am difficult to understand due to my large vocabulary and my high level of diction.
I don't think that was a problem, but that was a funny line.
So tonight, in essence, he said he's going to dumb it down for everybody. So Dallas Page...
Well, you know, we learned a lesson.
Dumb it down for people?
Dumb it down your damn promos.
Yep.
He said Dallas Page should understand him better than anyone. Page was the one who picked him up after his first stint in rehab. Always good to mention your first stint in rehab.
Look at the guy.
So 4 years ago, Page had been fired by WCW, and Raven was the one who lent him a shoulder to cry on. And every time Page was in a tough spot, Raven was there to have a phone call. But what about him? What about Raven? He spent 3 years in Barbed Wire City, going through tables, getting hit with chairs and frying pans, and Page, with one phone call, could have gotten Raven into WCW, but he hadn't. And why is that? Because he was jealous. He was scared Raven would be a bigger star. And Raven shakes his head and said, the snake warned me about you. He warned me you would turn your back on me, and I should have listened. And then in one of the more random encounters on a show that lived and died on random encounters, Raven versus Buff Bagwell.
Yeah.
Crowd loved Buff. I was intrigued by this, so I was sad only went a minute before Page came in through the crowd and Raven ran for his life. Buff wins by countout, and because it's Buff, this made him as happy as anything else ever did. And I say again, I love Buff Bagwell. Raven escapes, so Page goes to the announce desk to get a promo. He says, yes, it's true, Raven helped me in the past, but I helped Raven too. And Raven, you got a selective memory. And you tell it goes, much like on Raw, it was time for some shooting. And he says, Scotty was born with a silver spoon in his mouth. Raised in a 20,000 square foot mansion. Went to all the best private schools. Me? My mom was divorced with 3 kids before she was 20. I remember nothing before age 8. I bounced back and forth between family members, and through all that, I learned to turn negatives into positives. You, Raven, turned positives into negatives. He talked about Jake, talked about Raven and hardships. He said Raven doesn't know hardships. Hardships is the guy who's got an 8-hour job he hates, and when he's done, he has to go to the other 8-hour job he hates. Or the single moms who are struggling to get by with 2 or 3 kids. Think about those hardships, Raven. And he walked away. It was great.
He's channeling his inner Dusty
really
Rhodes
good.
here.
So this is the very
I
first...
remember this feud being good and producing some quality matches in the next coming months.
It's the first positively Page promo.
I guess it was.
It was! It was awesome.
This was the Dusty Rhodes Hard Times promo.
Basically.
It was the DDP Positively Times promo.
Disco Inferno versus Kidman.
I said well over a year ago that everybody remembers Disco being nothing but a comedy guy, but it's not true. It's a fake memory. It's the Berenstain Bears, is what it is. This guy came out, he dances to the ring, he's got a disco ball that's like superimposed over him.
Pause right there. Have they been doing this for a while and I've never noticed?
No, this was the first time
That
I
was
noticed.
awesome.
This is new.
He dances to the ring, he's got the thing superimposed, it's totally wacky, and then he gets in the ring, and as always, he has a straight babyface wrestling match with Kidman, and it was really good!
This was good. He's only been doing this serious gimmick.
No, you're imagining
No,
things.
you're imagining because you
No.
forgot about somebody getting hit with a disco ball.
One time! This guy's a serious wrestler.
Brian.
He's a grappler.
So they had a fun TV match. Disco won, and of course he can't do the stunner anymore because Beefcake stole it.
E. Harrison Leslie has stolen the stunner.
So he's doing a pile driver.
Boy, did he.
Yeah, it was a great pile
Drive
driver.
the fuck out of Kidman. And he gets the win, and Bobby Heenan says, that's the best I've seen, Disco. And I said, you know what, Bobby, I agree. That was the best Disco match I ever saw. Jim Neidhart versus Kurt Hennig. This is after Hennig and Rude had handcuffed Davey Boy Smith to the ropes last week and attacked him. So Rude's at the announce desk, which is miles away from the ring. And Neidhart is beating the hell out of Hennig and pointing at the desk and screaming, "You, Rude!" over and over.
My God. Neidhart said, "You, Rude," more than WWE said Ultimate Thrill Ride on Raw this week, which I didn't think was possible.
So he catches Hennig in a bear hug. Hennig is fucked. He waves for help. Rude comes running down to the ringside, shoves the ref down. Neidhart puts him in the bear hug, then Hennig cuts him off. They handcuff him to the ropes. Davey Boy Smith runs out to make the save. Bryan Adams runs out to hit him with the worst pile driver ever, except all his other pile drivers, which are tied for the worst ever. And Bret Hart runs out, and for about a minute, he just beats up all three dudes. just kicks their ass.
Yeah, that's notable.
Yes.
Rick Rude can't take bumps because he's got a Lloyd's of London permanent disability policy. He's dead within a year. He was 255 pounds when he died. He was training for a comeback. He had clearly decided at this point in time, I'm going to wrestle again. He's in there. He's beating people up. He was even taking punches, and he was taking everything that you could possibly take without actually falling down.
Chris Benoit versus Booker T.
Can we talk about Doug Dillinger's spare key for random handcuffs?
Yeah, what's up with that?
He's always got a key.
He's got a skeleton
He's got
key.
a skeleton key for any pair of handcuffs
in the world.
Man, that'd come in handy if I was a crook.
I'll tell you.
So Benoit versus Booker T. Benoit comes out in a Calgary Hitmen jersey, which is the minor league hockey team that Bret Hart owned at the time. And they actually plugged the Calgary Hitmen Swift Current Broncos matchup in the WHL playoffs, which has to be the best advertising in the history of the Western Hockey League.
Absolutely.
Millions of people around the world watching this show. And we're plugging the Swift Current Broncos.
This match felt... It felt like everything else on the show was a joke, and this was a real fight.
Well, yes.
Surprise, Benoit was hitting hard in this one.
Yeah, he was... For about 10 minutes, it was nothing special. It was good, but it was nothing special.
It was only 10 minutes, Vince.
For 7 minutes...
It was only 9 minutes.
He's got a point.
They went a little longer than the last 10-minute draw. That was 7 minutes.
This was a 9-minute, 23-second time limit draw. I did go back and check after last week's fiasco. So the point is, the last 2 minutes were really awesome.
Yeah.
You know what I love about this is, let's pretend it's real. So last week, they had a match, and it went 10 minutes.
Sure.
No finish. So their plan was, let's just do it again.
Yep.
Okay? So now it's gone to a 10-minute time limit draw a second time. I wonder what they're going to do next week. Like, shouldn't they say, we're going to extend the time limit?
That would be a good idea.
Shouldn't that be coming at some point here? I mean, it's pretty clear they can't get it done in 10 minutes.
If this is 2017 on Raw, they just do a no DQ match or a ladder match or something. Something totally unrelated to these time limit draws. Ultimo Dragon versus Psychosis.
Oh my God! Was this
This was horrible.
I was watching Nitro in somewhere around this time as a teenager. Would have been 18, 19 when this is going on, and no older than that. Anyway, I was watching this, and no one else in my family is a wrestling fan, but they let me have the TV Monday nights, and my sister happened to walk into the room during it was definitely an Ultimo Dragon match, probably this one, but after Benoit and Finlay and all the great wrestling that they don't see, they walked in on me watching this, and I was so embarrassed.
Dude,
They fucked up everything. Everything.
There was a point where
fell down at points, just not doing anything.
Yes.
Falling down. Yeah.
There was a point where Psychosis whipped him into the buckle. I don't know what happened, but Ultimo Dragon did a 360.
He's like a pirouette into the corner.
Yeah, he spun around and then fell back into the turnbuckle.
it was amazing because let's just say they did 20 spots. They fucked up 19 spots.
And a half.
Just like everything they fucked up. They fucked up a top rope drop kick. Like one guy jumps off the top rope and just has to hit the other guy. He still fucked it up. So after fucking up 19 moves, it's time for Psicosis to do a tope to the outside. And I'm like, you're the ballsiest fucker I've ever seen in my whole life. You fucked up every move, and now you're going to try a tope to the outside, you could presume, and they pulled it off!
Gotta get the crowd back, brother.
I have never seen a match that had so many fucked up spots.
With two great wrestlers.
But that's the point. It wasn't the worst match on the show.
No.
That's inconceivable. Like, how is that even possible?
So on top of all the shitty wrestling, it had a shitty finish. You see, last week, Psicosis legit broke Lodi's ankle. So the Flock's out for revenge, and they hit the ring and attacked for the DQ, and the Luchadors worked together to fight them off, and nobody cared about any of this. Had a new promotional idea to plug the website to get some clicks.
I got a promotional idea I'll talk about in a second.
This Friday at WCWWrestling.com, you can tune in to get an real audio stream of a card in Detroit. Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
You could hear it.
Yes.
Oh, man. I always loved...
Sure, it streamed real well back then.
Oh, yeah. I always loved that everything WCW did was just some sort of fuck-up. Like their website, it wasn't WCW.com. It was WCW Wrestling.com.
Yeah.
That's fucking dumb.
Someone must have had WCW.com.
World Championship Wrestling.com. WCW Wrestling.com. God. Now let's talk about Goldberg and Ray Traylor. Let's talk about the good news first. Every time Goldberg comes out, it's just mind-blowing how awesome the guy is. He's so green, and I hope he gets greener. Because he's so out of control and wild, and it's like a train wreck. He comes in here, man, he just steamrolls this guy, and the place goes nuts. No matter what he does, they go crazy, because he just looks like a wild animal in there,
like
mauling
Tasmanian
people.
devil.
So this is just absolutely amazing. The crowd, this got a bigger reaction than anything on the show.
Oh, yeah.
Stanley, how was this live? Just blew the roof off the place?
It was, like you said, it was intense because, I mean, you get watered down with the NWO. So, yeah, you see Kevin Nash, you see Hogan, you see, Vincent or whatever. So it kind of muddles together even with Hogan. But Goldberg was just like you said, it was just like this craziness because it's something new, it's something different. And it really was, as far back as I could remember, he really did get a super loud pop for sure. And it wasn't like anything else on the show.
Okay, now you can correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes.
This fucking guy has been around since the fall of the previous year, right? September?
Somewhere around there.
He's been around for like 8 months. He's super over. He was the most over guy on the whole show. They didn't have one piece of Goldberg merchandise yet.
That's dumb.
Yeah, that seems right.
What? Oh, they didn't have one shirt? They didn't have one... They didn't sell his gloves? This guy had been around for 8 months or whatever. He's a few months away from, becoming champion. He beats Raven, and then they do the whole thing with Hogan eventually. But, I mean, how the fuck can you have no merchandise for Goldberg?
And as you guys always point out, owned by a multinational media company.
A multinational media corporation. They didn't have one piece of merchandise for Bill Goldberg. Jiminy Christmas.
All I can really add to this is that the reaction was so overwhelmingly loud. Ray Traylor, who had spent months in main events with Hulk Hogan at the absolute peak of Hulkamania, he was blown away by this. He could not stop looking at the crowd saying, look at these people. And then these two big mofos went right at each other and it was awesome. And Bubba hits a spine buster, and Goldberg no-sells it and pops up and spears him to death and finishes it with a jackhammer. This was so awesome.
It was so great.
He finished Ray Traylor with the jackhammer.
Oh, yeah, it was nothing.
Yeah. The answers were even asking, can you get him up? And I was giggling. Of course he can. And he had no trouble.
Dude, he got Kevin Owens up. He's 50.
And this
Everything
is where...
about Goldberg build was just so well. I mean, even the announcers who constantly screwed up during this whole period of WCW, it's like they snapped in lucidity for 2 minutes and figure out how to get a guy over. It's just awesome.
And this is where the show peaked, and the next 2 matches were the most boring thing I have witnessed in my lifespan. Possible.
Unless you like throwing garbage, flying garbage, then you're good to go.
Saturn, by the way, had tried to get at Goldberg, but Reese and Hammer had held him back.
Hold me back.
Please hold me back.
I do love how simple it is, too. Goldberg is going to go through all of these geeks in the flock.
Yeah.
Eventually, he's going to get to Raven.
By then, Raven will be U.S. champion.
Kill him.
Yeah.
Yep. And then that sets up the...
There's only one prize left.
Yep.
Yep.
You know, it's funny. I remember always thinking, this company fucked up like everything. It's amazing they didn't fuck up Goldberg.
It is. It's
But
astonishing.
Then, you know what? The more I watch Goldberg, it's like, it's not that astonishing. I mean, look at the guy. Who could have ever even conceived of beating this man?
Them.
I mean, they eventually
did.
They eventually
Third
did,
point,
but
that-
man,
Yeah.
like, you'd have to be just the absolute biggest moron in the history of the earth to watch this show and think, like, anytime soon you should beat him.
And why did that surprise you then?
I don't know.
Yeah.
They were run by a crew of
He wrote
morons.
the book. Yep.
Yeah, you did write a book.
I know. It's, just,
Yeah.
it's more mind-blowing the more I go back and watch it.
We had Kevin Nash and a mystery partner versus Sting and Lex Luger. So Michael Buffer's there doing intros.
He's always so great.
He introduces Nash, and Nash comes out, and it's a mystery partner. So Michael Buffer, he drops the mic, but he doesn't drop it all the way. So like at half volume, we just hear him ask, "Who's your partner?" As if he's got a stack of index cards with a big speech
yeah.
on the roster.
He does write his own, apparently.
And Nash says, "Just bring the other guys out here." So out comes Sting and Lex. And as they are just about to hit the ring, Randy Savage zooms out. He wipes out Sting from behind and pile drives him on the floor. For the next hour or so, Randy Savage beat up Sting on the floor, and Nash beat up Lex in the ring. Fans did not boo Sting and Lex, but they were cheering Savage and Nash. And then when Sting finally made his comeback, they cheered for him too. And then Hogan came out and attacked Sting. Sting laid him out. Meanwhile, in the ring, with the ref distracted, Luger gets Nash up in the torture rack. Disciple hits the ring. He stuns Lex.
Stop. These two men have been in this business for well over a decade.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
If I were Stanley, this would have been worth my ticket price. To watch these two guys take an hour to set up a stone cold stunner. It took them forever.
It was something.
There's more.
There is.
E. Harrison Leslie begins to leave. And then remembers, oh, wait.
Oops. Something.
I'm
Sorry.
supposed to put Nash on top. So he runs back. He grabs Nash's hand. I don't know if he did this on purpose or not.
There's no way.
But
How can you be so clueless?
he put Nash's hand on Lex's dick.
Yep.
Yep.
He ran out of the ring. Ref turns around. It's a cover.
Yeah.
Certainly is.
That hand is definitely on that man. And he counts 3.
He did the hand job.
Did a job to the hand.
You ran right over my awesome joke, Craig, you fucker.
I thought people might not have gotten that.
That was funnier than mine.
Absolutely.
Get out of
It
here.
really wasn't, Craig. Just so you know. Oh, God. Meanwhile, in real life, someone threw a full cup of beer and it landed right on Nash's hand, which was on Lex's dick. So it was a wet hand job by the end.
Wow.
Yeah. And anyway, so Nash wins.
That freeze frame probably was something else.
Yeah. So let's see. What the hell happened then? Oh, Piper comes in out of nowhere. He starts brawling with Hogan, and they go to the back. They go to commercial. They come back. Nothing happens for a while. And then eventually Piper comes out, still brawling with both Hogan and Disciple. Piper has no friends. Where was the Giant? Piper did this whole match 2-on-1.
This match was so hideous.
These two old men brawled slowly
They
all
weren't
over the place.
old. They were in their mid-40s. They were younger than Chris Jericho. They were younger than Chris Daniels. They were younger than Triple H. I could go on and on.
That doesn't mean they weren't old.
Oh, my... You know what?
There's no one can watch this and not think these men are old.
When I mention those names, I mean, it's like... The guys today seem to be doing all right. And I don't even know how. Because it's not like Roddy Piper was jumping off the top of fucking cages. It's not like Hulk Hogan was a high flyer. These dudes totally physically fell apart in their mid-40s. This was like two 90-year-olds having a match.
There wasn't one wrestling move in this match.
Maybe that's why they didn't botch
Well,
anything.
at the very, very end, there was a sleeper.
Okay.
But they had this horrible brawl with a disciple interfering left and right. And then Piper hooks a sleeper, and the disciple attacks for the DQ.
God.
After all of that,
Fuck you.
A shit ton of garbage hit the ring.
And in my living room.
Yes.
Dude. Stanley, tell me about this garbage throwing.
Oh, it's. I had never experienced anything like that before, and the closest I came, I saw Metallica at one of those concert halls with grass in the back, and there was some grass thrown. But I mean, you're just sitting there.
They threw grass?
You know how much garbage is thrown.
Yeah, usually in
people are
blood
throwing it
form.
from the upper deck. They're not making the ring, so a lot of that stuff's hitting people in the lower deck. It was something else. They did not throw garbage at the Glow show. I can tell you that much, Vinny.
What did they throw? Don't answer that.
was grass at a
I was too
concert?
young.
Crazy.
Yeah.
So Nash comes out. He holds his hands up to Hogan as like a sign of peace, like I'm here to help. And his idea is, I'll hold Piper and you punch him.
This was ridiculous.
So he's got Piper's head. Now, in a best case scenario, Piper is of average height for a pro wrestler, and Nash is a giant. So even if Piper was standing straight, Nash's head would have been a foot higher. But Piper wasn't even standing up straight. So his head's like at Nash's belly level. So Hogan goes to throw a punch, and Piper dodges, and Hogan hits Nash in the face. But if Piper had not moved, Hogan would have hit him in the face anyway. And I'm watching this, trying to figure out, did they fuck that up, or was Hogan just going to punch Nash in the face? And to this day, I still don't know.
Well, luckily, based on the storyline, you could believe either one.
Yeah. So Giant finally arrives, and the NWO leaves to bicker on the floor, and that show ended, thank goodness.
I mean, at least Piper could have, like, dropped down for a jaw jacker, and then Nash would have bent over, and then he would have got punched.
Something.
That didn't happen.
This is bad.
Hogan was aiming for his face, and then he hit it.